Story 1, from stage 4 surprise to fighting for 10 more years and my son doesn't even know. I remember the moment I heard those words, stage 4, fatal if untreated. After decades of vague symptoms, curves of doctor visits and dead ends, for a moment the air became thin, my heart beat loud. They had treated 2 well-known causes, autoimmune diseases I was born with, and a series of related syndromes, but this? This was new. Something more sinister had been hiding in plain sight, masked by every diagnosis before it. And for once, the doctors conceded, they saw it too, just as I had been telling them. Just last year, my life felt stable. My second-born son, 25, my anchor, moved into the upper half of our garage to help with support and rent, freeing me to build a new life with a man I planned to spend retirement with. But when my health crashed, when hospitalization and relentless fatigue invaded my days, I lost much more than my strength. I lost stability. The relationship ended. I moved home, heart bruised, with my son, back into the life I thought I'd moved beyond. Now a temporary disability could stretch 6 months or more as I plunge into a summer of scans, specialists, trial therapies. I've already been 2 years undiagnosed, and without proper treatment, I might only have months. But they say, if treatments work, I might survive a decade, maybe more. I'm statistically in that hazy middle, not fatal tomorrow, but not out of danger. My son thinks I'm healing from known issues, that I just need to eat more, rest more. He doesn't know about the likely terminal stage we're up against. He helps me set up supplements, organizes paperwork, packs meals. Today is day 1 of a new protocol, a naturaceutical with strict directions and serious warnings. Everything hinges on this. I'm proud of how well we've adapted, yet terrified. His sister-like support sometimes clashes with denial. We argued this morning, me and panic, him calling it anxiety from AI-generated articles. We agreed to avoid discussing health, but we can't avoid reality, he needs to know. Last night I spent hours recording videos, the location of critical documents, passwords, legal and medical files. Today I started organizing them into a newly purchased phone, ready for him to pick up after his trip. If he doesn't pay attention, he'll make it harder on himself when I'm gone. I can already see the worry on his face, the shadows understanding brings. Tomorrow he leaves on vacation, smiling about beaches and beachside margaritas. I don't want to spoil it, but I need him prepared. A handbook that says don't panic if I'm hospitalized, know where the files are, there's no financial mess, and I love him fiercely. I'm only 55, and life feels eerily short now. Every scan, every specialist meeting, every blood test in the coming weeks is a step toward clarity, or final chapters. I've drafted wills and POAs, arranged for home care, even pre-selected a hospice center, just in case. I want him to come home to peace, not chaos. I polish the videos one more time, my throat thick. I trace the leather cover of my password notebook. I imagine his face when he sees it, eyes real, not clouded by fear. Morning, noon, night, I make a silent vow. The hardest conversation isn't the one I'm avoiding, it's the one already echoing in our silence. He left this morning with a cheerful grin and a hug. I locked the door behind him, heart racing. The apartment is empty now, but filled with intention. 5 video messages uploaded. Password lists indexed. Files linked and named. I feel lighter, yet heavier, the paradox of preparation. The next 2 weeks will be chaos. I plan labs, specialists, MRIs at dawn. Specialist 1 wants a biopsy. Specialist 2 requires an overnight stay. My doctor cautions, each test may trigger collateral complications. The autoimmune cluster is a web. There's Sjögren's risk turning to lymphoma, possible scleroderma signs, unknown cancers that could be growing. Every specialist's notes must be precise, no more biases cascading wrong assumptions. Today's finding is a testament to my instincts, but restarts the roulette wheel. I'm lost in medical textbooks and Google Scholar, learning terms I don't want to know. Between appointments, I collapse into memory. My son's voice, clear and strong, brings sanity. I keep his goodbye text on loop, have a good day, Mom. I pray he hears me and what I left behind. Videos saying I love you, no need to worry, everything is in order. If I don't make it, he knows. Tomorrow, I call him. We talk about his flight, his plans. He asks about my appointment. I answer carefully, tests scheduled. No panic, just purpose. He trusts that. He'll return to a place where I didn't allow fear to fracture us, where he can pick up his life without guilt or mystery. If the treatment works, maybe I'll have years. Maybe I'll be the grandma who sends postcards from Europe, who helps with the next child, who watches his children's children grow. If not, I'll go knowing I did everything I could. I'll save him from scrambling through my chart or lawyers or missed deadlines, he'll just step in, held by what I built for him now. This isn't heroic. It's necessary. Mortality doesn't need to be dramatic, it just needs to be honest. I want him to remember me not in grief, but in resilience. Not in fear, but in how calmly I moved through the worst storm we ever saw. I sit at the desk, pen in hand, and write one final video script: if it rains, don't unpack your bags. Come home slowly, rest, and know I held on as long as I could. Then I stop. The echo of silence returns. I press save. And I wait, waiting for healing, waiting for time, waiting for grace, and above all, waiting to know that love, when organized, honest, and tender, can outlive us all. He left this morning with a cheerful grin and a hug. I locked the door behind him, heart racing. The apartment is empty now, but filled with intention. 5 video messages uploaded. Password lists indexed. Files linked and named. I feel lighter, yet heavier, the paradox of preparation. The next 2 weeks will be chaos. I plan labs, specialists, MRIs at dawn. Specialist 1 wants a biopsy. Specialist 2 requires an overnight stay. My doctor cautions, each test may trigger collateral complications. The autoimmune cluster is a web. There's Sjögren's risk turning to lymphoma, possible scleroderma signs, unknown cancers that could be growing. Every specialist notes must be precise, no more biases cascading wrong assumptions. Today's finding is a testament to my instincts, but restarts the roulette wheel. I'm lost in medical textbooks and Google Scholar, learning terms I don't want to know. Between appointments, I collapse into memory. My son's voice, clear and strong, brings sanity. I keep his goodbye text on loop: have a good day, Mom. I pray he hears me and what I left behind. Videos saying I love you, no need to worry, everything is in order. If I don't make it, he knows. Tomorrow, I call him. We talk about his flight, his plans. He asks about my appointment. I answer carefully, test scheduled. No panic, just purpose. He trusts that. He'll return to a place where I didn't allow fear to fracture us, where he can pick up his life without guilt or mystery. If the treatment works, maybe I'll have years. Maybe I'll be the grandma who sends postcards from Europe, who helps with the next child, who watches his children's children grow. If not, I'll go knowing I did everything I could. I'll save him from scrambling through my chart or lawyers or missed deadlines, he'll just step in, held by what I built for him now. This isn't heroic. It's necessary. Mortality doesn't need to be dramatic, it just needs to be honest. I want him to remember me not in grief, but in resilience. Not in fear, but in how calmly I moved through the worst storm we ever saw. I sit at the desk, pen in hand, and write one final video script: if it rains, don't unpack your bags. Come home slowly, rest, and know I held on as long as I could. Then I stop. The echo of silence returns. I press save. And I wait, waiting for healing, waiting for time, waiting for grace, and above all, waiting to know that love, when organized, honest, and tender, can outlive us all. The sun hasn't fully risen when I push open the front door. The early light catches on my folders, organized, labeled, sealed. I carry them toward the car with a deliberate calm I don't entirely feel. Today's labs matter. The radioactive tracer injection, the invasive imaging, they all feel like a gamble with lines drawn around hope and fear. Inside that sterile clinic, I'm not just a patient, I'm a well-informed partner in my own care. I correct tiny inaccuracies as the technician wires me up, silently thanking the years I spent gathering data, interrogating my body, resisting complacency. In the waiting room, the receptionist hands me paperwork and says, "Let us know right away if you're feeling off." I nod and, without panic, say, "Of course." Test after test, I inhabit the space between analysis and living. My days fold into routine: scans in the morning, recovery in the afternoon, notes and telephone consultations by evening, watching the sky shift from blue to violet through my window. One morning, specialist calls me. Her tone is tentative: "We found something, but it's inconclusive. We're ordering more." I breathe and respond, "Thank you for telling me. I'll be ready." There's no drama, only a pressing sense of purpose. Meanwhile, life at home demands balance. My son returns from vacation to a quiet house made stronger by our video exchanges. He walks in, checks the fridge, my detailed note is pinned to the door: "Food is here." Microwave instructions on counter. "Love you." He smiles, folded his bags, comes to the kitchen to hug me. "I missed you," he says. I held on to this moment for months, this kind, unguarded acknowledgement. As night falls, I lie in bed and rethink my legacy, my love. Maybe I won't coach his kids in the future, but I've laid the groundwork for their childhoods in how I prepared him. In whom I trusted him to become. When I stand and check the charts on my phone, I realize I've become more than sick, I've become fierce. Weeks blend. Some results are reassuring, no immediate metastasis. Others are vague. I schedule a new biopsy. The doctor warns, it could come back negative again. My heart flinches, but I've done this before. I respond with truth, then we dig deeper. In isolation, I draft letters to half-forgotten family members, detailing my plans, my love, my gratitude. I cry reading them, thinking, if I do fail, let it be on full volume, not whispered regrets. Closing the laptop, I pick up my phone and shoot a quick message to my son. Thank you for carrying our shared light. The biopsy results arrive late on a rainy morning. I open them alone, hunched over the kitchen table. The words slide across the screen, most likely aggressive lymphoma, staging in progress. My breath halts. This feels like an endgame move in a story with no script. Then I breathe. I call my oncologist. I schedule treatment timelines. I map chemo cycles. The word curable hangs tentatively in the air. My response? A whisper of faith, let it be so. In the next weeks, treatment begins. The terms, I start at mid-dose, ebb and flow within my calendar. I carve out recovery days. On those days, I lie on my couch with folders at my side, revising living wills, passwords, contact lists. I clip bookmarks in the binder I gave my son. I keep planning like I'm plotting an escape, but instead it's a journey of return, to family, to purpose, to whatever remains mine to shape. During this, my son steps forward in ways he's never been asked to. He manages rounds of appointments, sits with me waiting for infusions, brings snacks, tells me stories about home. He's still my child, but he's become my caretaker, without a role reversal, but an evolution. I remind him daily, you are saving me with your presence. He just smiles. Evening, the other night, soft jazz plays while I cook a simple stir-fry. My son sets the table. We eat slowly. I tell him, I don't know where this goes, but I love this moment. He beams. He meets my gaze. Me too, Mom. That night, I sleep lighter than I have in months. I don't fool myself, this disease isn't gone. But I no longer feel alone in facing it. I feel held. The week of test results feels like living between two worlds. Each scan, biopsy, and doctor's call layers me deeper into complexity, while I fight to remain grounded in love, purpose, and fierce practicality. The biopsy confirms an aggressive B-cell lymphoma, diffuse large B-cell type, a fast-growing but treatable form if caught. According to specialists and sources like Verywell Health, aggressive B-cell lymphomas can be cured, and some patients see 4-year survival rates between 79 to 94% if treatment responds well. It's a banner of hope amid the terror. Now comes staging. Stage 4, my stage, means it's spread beyond lymph nodes into other organs. Statistics suggest a 5-year survival ranging from about 57 to 65%, depending on subtype and treatment. This time, I lean into every number, every word, I could still be among the lucky ones. Today I undergo the International Prognostic Index Assessment, the life table calculation that scores age, LDH levels, stage, and performance status. If I score low, 0 to 1, I have a 94% 4-year survival, higher scores drop steeply. My score lands in the moderate range, maybe 1 point. It's not catastrophic, and it sharpens my resolve. I open the door to my darkest truth, I am staging myself into an early legacy. I revisit those video messages and password guides. Soon, they'll need them. But today is chemo prep, day 1 of our CHOP. I drink 8 liters of fluid that morning, pre-medicate, and settle into a plush recliner. I hold a framed photo of my son and breathe in calm. Meanwhile, my son steps fully into his adult role. He tracks blood counts, stocks the pantry with protein shakes, and quietly rearranges his work schedule to fit infusion days. Caregiving literature emphasizes how powerful this engagement is, not just for the patient, but for the caregiver's sense of purpose. Caretaking, it's companionship. The first chemo round hits me hard, nausea, fatigue, the bone ache. I rest while he brings me smoothie bowls and news about my labs. I watch him read aloud caregiver tips he's printed from Cleveland Clinic, accept limitations. Continue routines. Get support. These reminders echo our pact, life goes on, even as everything changes. He asks gently, want company for the next scan? I nod, tears in my eyes, not for fear, but for this new bond. No resentment, no silence, just shared courage and respect. Outside the clinic, I research CAR-T and BTK inhibitors, hopeful trials aimed at those who relapse. If I reach that point, I'll fight smarter, harder. I'll take advantage of biotech leaps. Survival curves are moving upward, my odds are better than they've been in decades. At home, we institute small rituals, chemo cake after each session, shared playlists on infusion days, and photo check-ins with his hotel throw pillow when I stay near the clinic. We talk about nothing sometimes, just who we are, not who we're forced to be. In a quiet moment, I sit at the kitchen table and whisper to the empty chairs, I see you, I love you. I review the legal documents and lip the promises I made him. I want him to know, if I never coach his child or send postcards, I still hunted down every lifeline for us. I tried to stay. My son returns from a late shift to find me scribbling in my journal, I may find remission. I will die trying. He reads it over and replies softly, and I'll be there, Mom. It's the truth that drives this unspoken vow, between life and finality, that whatever comes, it will come clothed in dignity, gratitude, and mutual devotion. The morning sun filters through my curtains as I steel myself for round 2 of chemo. 6 weeks in, and each session still leaves me shaky, a cocktail of anticipation and fear. But I carry data in my veins and numbers in my heart, stage 4 diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, but curable in many cases. With first-line chemo, or CHOP, around 50% of patients with aggressive disease achieve long-term remission. The International Prognostic Index places me in the low-intermediate group, giving me roughly a 50 to 70% chance of surviving 5 years. These numbers don't erase fear, but they light a spark of hope. My son navigates each pump click and IV drip like a seasoned guardian. He tracks my blood counts, journals my fatigue levels, and reminds me, stay hydrated, Mom. Recent research confirms this dynamic. High caregiver resourcefulness, like his careful planning, boosts not only the patient's well-being, but the entire family's resilience. I watch him file copies of my charts, label my pills, and place supportive messages on the fridge. He's become more than my helper, he's my care partner. On the list today is a PET CT scan. I hold Mom's picture against my heart as the machine whirs. When it's done, my son squeezes my hand, no words, just solidarity in the scan room's teal light. We wait. The days stretch into each other until I hear from my team. There's good reduction in some nodes, stable in others. We stay the course. So I do. I follow through with chemo, steroids, and growth factors. When symptoms flare, nausea, numbness, fatigue, he stands with bowl and blanket and steady attention. During recovery breaks, we share quiet victories, a fresh batch of cookies, a walk to the park, a bowl of soup I made because I feel well enough to cook. It's these moments that remind me, remissions aren't fireworks, they're gentle resilience. Meanwhile, the oncology team floats new options into view. CAR-T therapy or bispecific antibodies like glofitamab, Columvi, are being used for relapsed cases, and they offer hope when first line fails. There's polatuzumab, Polivy, for relapsed or newly diagnosed combi therapy. If I relapse, we'll explore these, with data showing 78% ongoing responses at 12 months for glofitamab and promising survival after CAR-T. Therapy days become rituals, soft music, matched mugs, and whispered pep talks. You are more than a diagnosis. I see my son's shoulders relax when I spark laughter with a bad pun. We're building memories above morbidity. 2 weeks later, results arrive. PET scan shows nearly complete metabolic remission. I sit at the kitchen table, tears gathering in my eyes, not just relief, but pride. We've borrowed balance from remission, and from each other. He texts Dad, Mom's scans look great. She's fighting. Dad replies with a thumbs up and promise to visit with takeout. Caregiver studies show improved outcomes when family networks stay engaged, this is living proof. That evening, with soft jazz in the background, he cooks pasta while I set the table. We eat slowly, savoring each moment. He raises his glass, to you. To tomorrow. I smile, finally free of fear, if only for now. To tomorrow. The morning light feels fragile as I awaken for chemo round 3. 3 treatments in, and the fatigue is real, but so is the purpose. I carry with me the data and hope I've clung to, a 58% 5-year survival for stage 4 DLBCL, tempered by moderate IP scores and promises of CAR-T options should relapse strike. I'm not naive, I'm resolved. In the infusion chair, IV drip humming, I keep my son close by. He silently rearranges my pillow and offers my hand when I close my eyes. He's learned how essential small comforts are, drawing from studies that highlight caregiver actions as life-giving. He doesn't need instruction, he's intuitive now, the gentle heartbeat anchoring me. Later, lab results arrive, complete metabolic remission in several areas, but one stubborn node still glows. The doctor notes a partial remission, promising, but not final. I steel myself for more rounds, I nod, voice steady. We schedule an interim PET after the next treatment to reassess. When we get home, I collapse onto the couch, exhaustion layered with cautious optimism. My son brings smoothies and info printouts on CD20 bispecifics like odronextamab, and third-line CAR-T therapies, Yescarta, Breyanzi, Kymriah, all solid options in case of future progression. I feel armed, but sober. Each line of treatment has trade-offs, CRS, neurotoxicity, hospital stays. Yet today, I choose hope. That evening, we break our usual routine. Under soft lamplight, we spread cards with quotes of encouragement, watercolors of sunflowers, my favorite, and my treatment schedule in bold. He reads aloud, "You are not just surviving, you're fighting for more time." His voice shakes, mine steady, we are. Sleep doesn't come easily. I find comfort in the logistics, mapped out my advanced directives, reviewed POA and wills, and explained to him how to access critical digital files on his new phone. No dead ends, no confusion. I've arranged hospice provider contacts just in case, a gift of certainty, not surrender. Chemo round 4 begins and the site nurse greets me with warmth. She's been here since round 1, her smile says she's hoping for good results as much as I am. This time, I've brought cookies made by my son, a thank you for staff whose work gets me here. He beams. I think, kindness multiplies, even in oncology wings. My interim PET arrives shortly after, words on a screen, near complete remission. The stubborn node shrank significantly. My doctor uses words like very favorable sign. We schedule 2 final sessions, with maintenance scans afterward. This is progress, however cautious. At home, I hang a small framed sign on the wall, she persisted. My son puts a hand on my shoulder and says quietly, we persisted. We share a smile, battle-worn, yes, but not beaten. Cancer isn't a single story, it's a series of chapters. We're writing hours with intention, scans booked, therapies lined up, love knit into every delivery and word. We talk about vacations again, not now, but soon. We plan for next summer's birthdays, remembering that our time, measured in remissions and regressions, is still ours. Tonight, I sit at the kitchen table with jotted plans, a spreadsheet of treatment dates, future scan reminders, CAR-T eligibility points. My son folds the next chemo cookie, humming. I know this journey isn't over, but neither am I. I trace his hand and think, if this becomes our hardest chapter, let it be written with dignity, clarity, and fierce love. And with that, I close my eyes, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. Story 2: When Straight A meets Sloth Mode. A parenting turnaround you have to read. I'm not usually one to post on Reddit or air my family's dirty laundry, but right now I'm desperate and floundering, utterly at my wit's end. My middle daughter is 16, a rising junior who once dazzled us with straight A's throughout middle school and freshman year, but this year is unraveling before my eyes. She's impeccably bright, yet also possibly the laziest teenager I have ever met. I love her fiercely, yet I feel ashamed and terrified that this daughter is mine and that somehow my husband and I bear responsibility for raising her into this complacent shell. School has ended, and her grades rolled in. A's in humanities still define part of her report card, but a C+ in math and a B in chemistry make me tremble. The kicker is that she had fewer responsibilities this year, no job, no extracurriculars, yet her performance slipped further than when she was stretched thin balancing school and life. Instead of local theater or volunteering, she spends her days holed up in her room, devouring TV shows and books in a self-imposed bubble. She has no friends, and social doesn't even begin to describe her world. Worse, she refuses to engage outside her cocoon. It's like talking to a brick wall. I beg her 10 times to take out the trash or start homework, then I escalate my tone, but it still doesn't register. We hired tutors to help her navigate math and chemistry, but she won't lift a finger. In fact, this morning she lied outright about completing an essay. I discovered it was barely half done and a week late. She's got help lined up, but she can't be bothered to put in any effort. I told her today that I was so angry I couldn't look at her, and she laughed. She had the nerve to tell me it's my fault she's this way. Meanwhile, my husband is practically a ghost, detached and distant, expecting me single-handedly to fix her. We're now seriously talking about cutting off college funding. If she can't get through high school, Why would we pay tens of thousands for a degree she might not finish? We've even entertained the idea of boarding school or military academy for her junior or senior year. I cringe at the thought. I just want my child to care about her life. Does anyone else feel this way? Am I failing as a parent, or is there hope for turning this around? That evening, after everyone else had left the dinner table, I found myself alone with the school report. I stared at the glaring C+ and B, at the gap between who she was and who she's become. I thought about self-determination theory, which says motivation blossoms when kids feel autonomy, competence, and relatedness, and realized I had been trying to enforce outcomes rather than spark ownership. And I remembered the Reddit advice about breaking tasks into bite-sized routines. Small successes build momentum. With trembling resolve, I chose a new path, a partnership, not a power struggle. I started the next morning differently. Instead of sharp instructions, I sat next to her at breakfast and said, "I know school feels pointless right now. I know you're tired." She paused, looked at her oatmeal. I continued, "What do you want this year?" She shrugged, so I nudged gently, "Really, what would make this year feel worth it, for you?" To my surprise, she said she misses feeling smart and doesn't want to be stuck in this fog of apathy. That was our opening. We talked goal setting, not threats, but authentic conversations. How about picking a small target in a subject you like? Chemistry tutor twice a week? She nodded once. I quoted SMART goals, specific, measurable steps. She agreed to a weekly check-in, a casual Sunday afternoon chat to talk life, not grades. This mirrors evidence-based advice to shift from outcomes to effort-focused praise. The next task we crafted together: finish her overdue English essay by Thursday. We broke it into steps: brainstorm Tuesday, draft Wednesday, proof Thursday. There was no nagging, just quiet accountability. What part are you on? I'd ask. If she needed help, I'd sit beside her, not lecture, just offer support. By Thursday, the essay was done. No cramming, no tears, just steady progress. She slid it in on time and said, "Feels good." I forgot that. We shared a small hug, and I told her I was proud of her effort, not the grade. We also rebuilt her routines: phone-free homework time, 15-minute breaks with music, proper sleep, 8 hours nightly. These changes stem from behavioral research showing healthy routines support self-control and motivation. Within 3 weeks, her math went from C+ to B, chemistry climbed. She asked for calculators and doodled colorful notes. Best of all, she began smiling again. Despite this progress, setbacks surfaced. She missed a test once and didn't study. I resisted anger and instead offered empathy. What happened? She admitted she got overwhelmed. We adjusted. I helped her sketch out a simple study plan for upcoming tests, reinforcing self-worth and competence, not fear. She sighed and said, "Thanks for not yelling." She's more open now. She talks to her tutor willingly and sometimes finishes homework without prompting. It's far from perfect, but it's a conversation, not a wall. Meanwhile, my husband softened too. He hugged her after a quiz improvement and stopped demanding I fix everything alone. The family atmosphere grew lighter. The tension in me eased when I stopped seeing my daughter as a problem and began seeing her as a teenager in turmoil. Parenting expert Anita Clear suggests keeping a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. We managed that ratio by deliberately noticing effort and celebrating small wins. A month in, I watched my daughter return from art club, something she joined because she wanted structure and social time. She described the art teacher, the projects, the classmates. She laughed at a joke. She looked less like a shell. I realized we might avoid boarding school after all. Yes, we still talk about consequences. No college funding leaks until she earns passing grades. But now consequences are measured and logical. We are building goal habits rooted in her choices. We're practicing autonomy and competence like a health routine. We're relearning to be family. If you're parenting a teen caught in the fog of apathy, here's what might help. Start with empathy, dig for personal motives, build small goals together, praise effort, enforce structure, cut the pressure, and trust them to rise when they see themselves reflected in those goals. We're only halfway along, but for the first time, I feel hope, not shame. As autumn deepens, I feel the first glimmer of a shift not just in the leaves but in my daughter's spirit, the careful planning of our goals beginning to bear fruit. One crisp Saturday morning, she emerges from her room before 9 a.m. for the first time in weeks. Breakfast is on the table, an unexpected invitation to join her, and I take it without hesitation. She tells me she stayed up late brainstorming ideas for an art club project, and even squeezed in a math video before bed. I almost don't recognize that spark, but there it is: curiosity, momentum, self-direction, Echoes of motivation theory that show when teens feel competent and autonomous, they bloom. Later, she asks if she can reorganize her desk to help her focus, a space she's claimed as her own nest of ideas. I help her draw lines on the wall calendar to track assignment deadlines and club commitments, an anchor of routine that confirms active planning, a key habit of self-regulated learners. That afternoon, while she's at her first art club session, I sit in the car and breathe, a tentative sigh of relief. Minutes later, she bursts out smiling, excitedly describing the collaborative mural they started, the people she met, the sense of belonging that we now understand is critical to adolescent well-being and academic engagement. On the long drive to tutoring, she tells me she doesn't dread the subjects anymore, that she wants to feel smart again. I hold her hand. When we get home, she opens her planner and writes Chem Study, 5 p.m. Wednesday of her own accord. I want to cry. That evening, her brother acknowledges the difference, his usually sullen sister looks happy. My husband finally smiles too, his tone softer, saying, "She's back." Later, I slip into her room before bed and ask, "How was today?" She answers without a pause, "It was good, Mom." No lecture, no escape. I feel the warmth of cooperation, ambition, and empathy aligning for the first time. She's not just responding to pressure, she's choosing to engage. It's fragile, and we know challenges lie ahead, but for the first time this journey feels reciprocal. Her effort motivates us as much as we support her. And as I watch her prepare for tomorrow, steady and purposeful, I realize we may have discovered the key to guiding her not by doing for her, but by helping her do for herself, and in that discovery lies hope. By mid-November, the shift in my daughter's energy was unmistakable. One afternoon, I returned home from work to find her at the kitchen island, not slouching, but seated straight in her school blazer, headphones paused, keying in algebra practice on her laptop. She looked up, surprised. "Mom, I need help with the quadratic formula." My heart pinned with relief and pride. Seeing her ask for help, unprompted, felt like a small victory worth celebrating. We moved to the living room, textbooks spread around us. I kept my tone steady, like a coach, "Let's break it down step by step." She followed, nodding, asking questions when concepts eluded her. She tried twice, then thrice, until comprehension lit her face. She whispered, "I get it." That moment, silent, bright, felt like reclaiming the spark I thought lost. From that day, routines took root. Morning wake-ups aligned with mellow music, 15 minutes of light exercise, then a breakfast of protein and fruit before school. Homework followed dinner, no screens until math and chemistry were at least started. She restructured her art desk, its calendar now annotated with assignment deadlines and tutor times. This wasn't pressure, it was structure she'd helped build. Reliable routines aren't rigid, they stabilize motivation and reduce anxiety by replacing uncertainty with consistency, a principle backed by childhood development research. Art club became her oasis. She sketched quietly, chatting when her tutor waved them in. One evening, she placed a sketchbook before me, her face shy but hopeful. "Here." The drawings reflected a girl reconnecting with herself. Her chemistry grade edged from B to B+, math trended toward a solid B. I celebrated even increments. It wasn't about perfection but forward momentum. Her father, who had withdrawn, began to notice too. He quietly tucked a note beside her planner, "Proud of you, Dad." She found it and hugged him. He didn't lecture, he simply shared presence, and that mattered. When she stumbled, a bad test score, missed deadline, our approach transformed frustration. A calm question, "What happened?" Her honest answer, "I got overwhelmed." Together, we adjusted the plan, extra support steps, shorter goals, to rebuild confidence, not punishment steps. It helped her internalize the fact that derailing doesn't mean defeat. Intentional recovery matters. We also celebrated deliberately. Midterm reports with upward arrows earned homemade brownies. Sundays included low-pressure family walks. These moments deepened our bond, as the theory suggests that relatedness, connection with family, fuels motivation far beyond grades or external praise. One night, as I watched her doodle goals for next semester, I realized we weren't chasing her success anymore, we were guiding it. Her efforts reflected increasing autonomy, competence, and connection, the three psychological pillars experts say drive intrinsic motivation. She began to believe in her own capacity, not because I told her she could do it, but because she had done it. In that fragile, hopeful space, we both breathed a little easier. The journey is far from over, senior year looms, with its pressures and choices, but now she's walking it with intention and I'm walking right beside her. This is not a fairy tale fix. It's gritty and uneven. But it's real, a mother and daughter learning together how to rebuild from the inside out, one step, one conversation, one choice at a time. By late November, our small victories began to sharpen into genuine momentum. Her test scores in math edged from B to B, chemistry perched at B+ consistently, and that art club became her anchor. It was during a Friday afternoon study session that I saw it most clearly. She opened her notebook to the word goal in block letters, then filled the page with a plan to tackle a complex topic she cared about. It wasn't assigned, it was hers. She was mapping research steps, listing checkpoints, even penciling in mini celebrations. Skillfully, she had begun internalizing what psychologists call expectancy value theory. She now cared because she believed the effort aligned with her identity, interests, and future. But growth rarely moves in a straight line. One Monday morning, I found her curled on the couch at 7:30 a.m., SIM card in hand and eyes red-rimmed. Alarm didn't go off. She whispered that she'd stayed up late, and now was drowning in anxiety over a math quiz. In that moment, I had a choice: react with frustration or step in with support. I dialed her tutor, asked them to spare a few minutes before school, and sat beside her while she texted. She half smiled as she saw a supportive reply. When her phone pinged back, she breathed, "Okay, doable." That small act, helping her shift from overwhelm to action, is exactly what research identifies as building self-efficacy. It's not resilience born of toughness, but resilience born of compassionate scaffolding. That same evening, at dinner, her father remarked softly, "She seems less scared now." He reached over and ruffled her hair, offering a smile of encouragement instead of criticism. Our home felt warmer. We also faced a parallel test, her first big exam in chemistry after months of steady climb. The night before, she paced, fretting over formulas. I sat next to her, reminding her of all the times she'd conquered hard problems. I didn't tell her to be perfect. I told her to trust herself, and that alone would shape her mindset. Inspired by Carol Dweck, we focused on process, not perfection, reinforcing that effort equals growth. The next morning, I drove her to school, and instead of dropping her with a lecture, we leaned into the car's hush. I said simply, "You've done the work. Now show up for yourself." She nodded, glanced back at me in the mirror, and waved. At 3 p.m., she rushed out smiling, "I think I did okay." Sure enough, she scored a B+, not her goal, but far stronger than weeks before. When she bounded in, I greeted her with a high five and 2 bowls of hot chocolate. It was our effort reward, not an indulgent treat. She grinned, "Worth it." As December arrives, her planner is colorful and annotated with meetings, deadlines, club days. She swapped out silent afternoons in her room for lunchtime club discussions, homework groups, and casual study halls. Across the board, her teachers note improved participation and growing self-confidence. And it's not just academics, she's even started talking about future options again: community college, perhaps a trade program in graphic design. This is the magic of nurturing motivation scientifically. We harness autonomy, competence, and relatedness, not with prizes or threats, but with supportive structure and belief-infused guidance. When she stumbled, we didn't punish, we pivoted. When she triumphed, we celebrated the journey, not the letter grade. She's not a rebound story yet, but the comeback is real, and it's ours. In the small hours of one calm evening, I peeked into her room and saw her flashlight under the covers, bent over a comic she was reading for fun. I sat on her bed and she passed the flashlight to me, saying softly, "I just want to feel like I matter." She didn't ask to fix everything, but she trusted me enough to share that. And for the first time in months, I believed that she could be proud of herself, not just the reflection of her efforts. And that, perhaps above all else, is where lasting change begins. By early December, our shared journey had taken on a new rhythm. One afternoon, while I was busy preparing dinner, I noticed she was unusually quiet. I found her in the living room, seated cross-legged among textbooks and colored markers, headphones muted, eyes intent. She looked up and said, "I have a presentation in history next week and I want to do it well." It wasn't a forced assignment, it was her choice. She outlined her plan: research topic, draft slides, practice aloud. In that moment, I recognized the transformation, not just in her grades but in her motivation. Self-determination theory emphasizes autonomy, competence, and relatedness. She now led her own path, believed in her ability to succeed, and felt connected to our shared support. That evening, we built a study power hour schedule together, 5 to 6 p.m. daily, phone-free, followed by a light reward of tea and music. No lectures, no nagging, just structure we both designed. This mirrored educational tools that stress giving learners ownership, manageable challenges, and nurturing feedback. She asked for 15 minutes of math prep, 10 minutes of history slide work, and nightly reflection in a gratitude journal. I watched her breathe easier, the pressure easing as she reclaimed control. But progress does not come without hiccups. Her tutor called midweek, concerned she missed a session. I confronted her calmly. Did you skip it? She admitted she felt tired and lazy. Instead of lecturing, I responded, let's figure out how to keep your rhythm even when life gets heavy. We tweaked the schedule, shorter sessions on hard days, and added a 2-minute check-in each morning, a brief reminder of what she wanted, not what she had to do. She agreed. It built ownership while respecting her limits, a balance that research shows fosters resilience and self-efficacy. The presentation day arrived, and I drove her to school in silence. I parked outside her classroom, heart pounding. An hour later, she emerged with a radiant smile. I nailed it. She described classmates clapping, her voice steady, her notes clear. I celebrated her courage, not just achieving a grade, but stepping forward with confidence. Behind that smile lay months of small steps, evidence that autonomy and competence work when tied to connection, and not control. On her report card after the semester break, she received an A in history, a B+ in math, and a B in chemistry. Not perfection, but solid upward trends. More importantly, she asked, can I stay late tonight to finish chem questions with my tutor? My heart lurched with hope. This wasn't obligation, it was choice. I hugged her, feeling pride not just in grades, but in her rekindled drive. My husband has noticed the difference too. He stopped asking me why she isn't trying. Instead, he checks in gently, and our household feels lighter. The load I carried alone is shared again. I see her planning next semester's goals, doodling one possibility at a time. We still hold each other accountable during check-ins, but now the dialogue is collaborative. She doesn't fear failure, she expects effort. Of course, challenges still loom: finals, senior year decisions, the possibility of college or trade school. But she's no longer wandering. She's walking with intent. This chapter isn't a finish line, it's a launchpad. A path lit by autonomy, competence, and relatedness, psychological pillars that grow internal motivation when we step aside and guide from beside rather than above. My daughter didn't magically transform, she rediscovered belief in herself. She learned that her life matters because she matters, and that for any parent, stepping out of the way is sometimes the best way to stay by their side. By winter's arrival, I walk into holidays feeling not fearful, but hopeful, because my daughter has become a partner in her own progress. When she told me she wanted to design a small booklet of holiday-themed illustrations for the art club fundraiser, I watched her sketch, revise, and proudly fold the pages herself. She didn't ask me to force a deadline or bribe her with praise, she asked for feedback, and I offered it, not directives. That subtle shift, supporting without controlling, echoed the autonomy-supportive parenting I'd read about, trusting her, involving her in decisions, offering structure without pressure. Over time, I learned that teens flourish when their needs for autonomy, competence, and connection are honored, not ovary. The fundraiser was her first real public presentation of work in months. She stood beside her display, greeting classmates, explaining her inspiration, even thanking parents who bought a booklet. I whispered congratulations and saw the glow of pride in her eyes. That confidence, earned, not given, is what we'd been building step by step. It felt like watching her identity re-emerge, not just a student, but a creator, a contributor, a choice maker. Later, at our holiday dinner with extended family, my daughter carried a board game she'd designed for her siblings, featuring trivia based on chemistry and art. She laughed as she taught them how to play, her knowledge, interests, and personality all woven into something tangible. My husband looked over at me with a soft smile and said, "She's back." For the first time in nearly a year, I believed him. On New Year's Eve, we sat side by side in soft lamplight. I handed her a small journal and pen. "Your space," I said. "Write what you want next year. No pressure, just ideas." She opened it, words already flowing. She wrote, "Improve math to B+, apply for summer design class, hang out with friends real." I nodded, tears glistening. She met my gaze. "I like planning this," she said. I realized then that motivation born from within can never be taken away. The real victory wasn't in improved grades alone, but in our relationship. We'd rebuilt trust, respect, and emotional safety, me stepping away when needed, stepping in when invited, guiding without controlling. My husband shifted too, learning to listen without lecturing, to affirm rather than judge. Our family grew stronger, not because we fixed her grades, but because we changed how we listened and responded. As I tucked her into bed on the last night of the year, she hugged me and whispered, "Thanks for believing I could do it." I kissed her forehead and said, "I believed, but half of that spark was always yours." In that moment, I knew this story of struggle had become a story of reconnection. I'd followed the path of autonomy supportive parenting, acknowledging her feelings, offering structure gently, and letting her choose her journey. In return, she chose to try, not for me, not for grades, but for herself. We've still got challenges ahead, senior year, SATs, college decisions, but I'm no longer afraid. Because she's walking forward confident, supported, and capable. And as a mother, I've learned that letting go sometimes means holding on in exactly the right way. Story 3, she was there but not present, reclaiming family through small acts and big heart. It all started 5 years ago when my brother-in-law Adam, a kind-hearted man in his mid-30s, began dating Lisa. From their early days together, Lisa's cruelty was easy to spot. She constantly teased Adam about his weight, calling him fat in front of others and mocking him under the guise of playful banter. I wanted to speak up then, but Adam always brushed it off, saying, "She's not wrong," while the rest of the family urged us to mind our own business. We were told repeatedly that dating Lisa was his choice, and there was no point in interfering. Fast forward to today, and Adam and Lisa are married with 2 little girls, ages 2 and 3, who spend their days in daycare. Adam works 6 days a week, does late-night Zoom meetings, and when he's home, he cooks, cleans, and takes primary responsibility for childcare. My elderly mother-in-law, Sandy, steps in when the kids are sick or during the weekends, despite needing to care for my father-in-law, who can't walk post-stroke. She's cancelled important doctor visits to watch the children. Lisa, a part-time telehealth nurse, is present, but only in name. The balance of care falls almost entirely on Adam and Sandy. Over time, Lisa's behavior only grew more neglectful and controlling. She booked expensive vacations without telling Adam, leaving him to shuffle his jam-packed work calendar at the last minute. During Adam's Zoom calls, she would silently expect him to break up toddler squabbles or change diapers, demanding domestic labor without acknowledgement or appreciation. On Adam's birthday, she scheduled bathroom renovations and left him at home reviewing contractors instead of celebrating with family, dismissing the oversight as something I forgot. During holidays, Sandy cooks, everyone helps with the children, and Lisa remains disengaged, absorbed in her phone, speaking in Chinese in conversations we can't follow, or even napping, while the kids beg for attention. The kids' pleas are met with silent irritation rather than care. Watching Lisa's detachment and dismissiveness toward her own children makes my stomach churn. It feels like watching active emotional abuse. Adam and Sandy have had enough. My husband and I have carefully urged them to speak up, to challenge Lisa's control or neglect, especially when it comes to the children. But Adam says, let her decide how she wants to run things. Sandy stays silent because she worries that confrontation could lead Lisa to keep the kids from her, or even spark divorce proceedings. My fear is Lisa would follow through on a threat to cut us out entirely. As in many dysfunctional families, the abuser emerges when others enable or stay silent, turning a harmful pattern into the new normal. I feel like a caged lion, powerless to protect the people I love most. I can't sit by and watch Adam shoulder every burden while Lisa remains emotionally distant, yet the family dynamic, marked by neglect, control, and complicity, is hard to break. I ask myself, am I the coward who stays silent, or the warmonger who causes a divide? And what of the children? Emotional neglect does real harm. It erodes self-worth, creates anxiety, and sets a pattern that lasts a lifetime. Watching Lisa ignore her daughter's calls for hugs, comforting words, or playful banter crystallizes the worst part of domestic emotional neglect, a toxic blend of control, absence, and indifference. It's an abuse that leaves no bruises but corrodes trust and safety from within. And yet, the family structure protects her. All the while, I replay my own role in this as my stomach knots and my chest tightens. I helped raise Adam's hand when they married. I cheered as Lisa joined the family. Now, I ask myself, what was I thinking? Did I, in my own silence, enable this cocoon of dysfunction? In families like this one, the invisible force of emotional abuse thrives behind enforced silence, fear of disruption, and the illusion of peace. But peace born of fear is no peace at all, it's a prison. With the load growing heavier, I realize something must change. But the question remains, how? I'm not even sure I can identify the moment to begin. And yet I know one thing, if I continue to watch, I become complicit. By the time the message alert blinked on my phone one evening, I was already bracing myself. It was my mother-in-law Sandy, and I knew immediately from her tone that something had snapped. I can't keep doing this, she texted. I'm exhausted watching Lisa ignore the kids and expect Adam to pick up the slack. Her words carried the weight of months spent shouldering burdens alone. That weekend, I joined Sandy and Adam at their home, Stepping into a living room already thick with midday chaos, the kids were flinging toys. Lisa lay on the couch scrolling on her phone, headphones on, utterly disengaged. I felt a tightness in my chest, rage, sadness, helplessness. I glanced at Adam, whose expression was one of solemn resignation. We gathered in the kitchen. With Adam's voice barely above a whisper, he said, "I don't want to fight. I just want her to stop treating us like we don't exist." We listened, Sandy wiping tears as she recounted how she canceled her doctor appointments just to help care for the kids, how Lisa's absence left their stroke survivor father alone, unsupported. I spoke up for the first time in years. "This is emotional neglect," I said quietly. "Neglect isn't just failing to feed them, it's failing to meet their emotional needs. And neglect is as harmful, sometimes more so, than outright abuse." I felt eyes on me, and I continued, "Research shows that emotional neglect, like ignoring your child's need for attention and affection, roots toxic stress, impairs emotional regulation, and even stunts brain and social development." The room went quiet, but I could sense the truth landing. I turned to Lisa, who removed her headphones and looked at me. "You say you love your children," I whispered. "But love is action, not absence." I didn't scream or accuse. I simply said truthfully what we all felt but feared. For a long moment there was stillness. Lisa's face hardened. Then all at once, Adam took her hand, but gently. "We need a change," he said firmly. "All of us." And for the first time, Lisa glanced at the kids. They sat on the floor, building a block tower, too tired to cry, too hopeful to wait. That afternoon, the family sat down, not to argue, but to create a plan. We mapped out roles. Lisa agreed to put away the phone during family meals. She'd spend 30 minutes a day playing, reading, or walking with the kids. We agreed she would take over bedtime one night a week, with no distractions. We arranged for Sandy to get help from a neighbor once a week, so she could keep her medical appointments. We structured vacations with shared planning, not last-minute surprises. It wasn't easy. Later that weekend, Lisa snapped at the toddler. "Too tired," she said. She stormed out of the nursery, then looked back, tears brimming in her eyes. Something, however small, had shifted. Behind that storm was guilt, regret, a first sign that our intervention had crept beneath her defenses. Over the next weeks, I watched change unfold. Lisa put down her phone during dinner. She laughed when the kids asked silly questions. One morning, I walked into the kitchen to find her cutting fruit and singing to the 2-year-old. That night, Adam texted me, "She actually let me help with bedtime, without having to ask. I think she's trying." It wasn't perfect. Old habits surfaced. She forgot on a busy Thursday, pulled the phone back out, but she remembered the plan and apologized. She asked to talk privately. "I don't know how to be a mother sometimes." We talked. We listened. We shared gentle truths. And that honesty, more than anything, became the foundation for real healing. This was no fairy tale transformation. It was gradual. But it was real. When emotional needs are neglected, children suffer from attachment issues, anxiety, internalizing problems, and developmental delays, scientifically proven consequences of emotional neglect. In response, we crafted emotional scaffolding, a system of accountability, empathy, and structured attention that could counteract neglect, reset family patterns, and protect the kids. It felt like we were telling Lisa, "We see you. We know you can be different." And with us watching, not judging, she began to step into that space, awkwardly, but bravely. Watching her slowly fill roles that once belonged to others, listening when the kids babbled at her, choosing to respond when they asked her name or for a bedtime story, those small moments blossomed into something powerful. Sundays have since become family time, phone-free dinners, story hours, clubhouse builds. Sans doctor appointments remain intact. Adam no longer feels alone. And Lisa isn't perfect, but she's present. We didn't go nuclear. We created boundaries, compelled accountability, and offered support, not threats. We replaced enforced silence with honest conversation. And in that space, change didn't explode, it grew. As I left that night, I saw Lisa at the door, one of the girls in her arms, handing me a tentative smile. I realized, this struggle wasn't about winning or losing. It was about showing each other what could be possible when silence ends, and empathy begins. The shift won't be seamless, but hope is lit. By early spring, the air in the household felt lighter, like the lingering breath after a storm. One sunny Saturday morning, I heard laughter from the yard. Peering outside, I saw Lisa on her knees, coloring with the kids on the dew-soft grass. A small moment, but it spoke volumes. She was present. When she straightened, her eyes met mine and she smiled, opened, genuine, Real. That alone felt like progress. We had kept our family agreement in motion. Lisa's 30 minutes of phone-free time each day became a fixture, not forced, but natural. On weekdays, she read bedtime stories to the toddlers and unfolded puzzles at the kitchen table with them. When school calls disrupted Adam's work, she stepped in, not with delay or distraction, but with responsive care and attention. I could see her quiet pride in those moments. The transformation didn't happen overnight, and we still hit rough patches. Twice, Lisa returned to her phone mid-conversation, slipping into old habits. One evening, after an after-school meltdown from the 3-year-old, she nearly lost her temper, and snapped. But instead of hiding behind guilt, she took a deep breath, swept aside tears, and apologized to her daughter. "Mama forgot. I'm sorry." That moment, acknowledgement over reticence, was more powerful than any perfect parenting moment it replaced. We're training emotional muscles in real time. This practice aligns with deeply rooted psychological principles. Emotionally responsive caregiving reshapes the neural systems that regulate stress and attachment. Each time Lisa responded, apologized, remained, she rewired the architecture inside those children's developing brains. The neglect had once been silent and invisible, but now, our active presence carried deeper influence than any material comfort could. At Easter brunch, I watched Lisa gently assist the kids in an egg hunt, kneeling, laughing, matching colors to their squeals of delight. Her phone stayed muted in her pocket. For a long moment, I felt hope swell. My voice caught as I whispered to Adam, "She's really trying." He squeezed my hand, gratitude plain in his eyes, as relief and pride rippled through both of us. Sandy, too, found balance restored. She resumed attending medical appointments, handing off kids without worry, trusting the caregiving network held firm. But the hardest moment came when Lisa confessed, tears making shadows on her cheeks, "I've been lost. I didn't know how to do this." When we heard her say that, it changed everything. Emotional neglect often stems from emotional inner emptiness, and breaking it begins when caregivers admit those internal fractures. Her vulnerability created room for healing. We began couples nights, just Adam and Lisa, no kids, no phone interruptions. They would share a short text each morning, "I'll handle bedtime." Or "dinner is covered." It strengthened their partnership, and rebuilt trust and teamwork. At a school fundraiser, Lisa made small talk with parents, attempted social connection. Her daughters hugged her in front of us, they were learning attachment through her availability. Attachment theory reminds us that children form lasting bonds based on emotional responsiveness, a bond now reforming, layer by loving layer. I realized our shift wasn't about calling Lisa out or shutting her down, it was about inviting her in, step by step. Like turning a faucet gently, not smashing a valve. We gave her tools, clarity of expectation, compassion in failure, space to grow. And she responded. Looking back, the nights alone in kitchen chairs, the whispered agreements, the small schedule maps we drew, they all count. This isn't a fairy tale cure, it's a slow arc. But emotional neglect isn't destiny, it's reversible when families witness and nurture change. On Mother's Day, Lisa opened a handmade card from her girls. "Mommy, thanks for being here." She grabbed them close, softly crying, and for the first time, the tears felt redemptive, not empty. The household wasn't perfect yet, hiccups continue, voices still crack, phones still tempt. But we've built enough new patterns that moments of neglect no longer define us. Instead, responsiveness, presence, and emotional repair do. This chapter doesn't end with perfect harmony, but with something more resilient, a family rebuilding trust in each other. It's a reminder that emotional connection is not an accident, it must be practiced and reclaimed. And as I watch those children rise and bloom in this warm space, I know, it was worth everything. By late spring, the tension in the household had eased into a cautious, hopeful warmth. One evening at dinner, the two little girls, ages 3 and 4, giggled as Lisa leaned in close to help them with their mashed peas. Her phone stayed face down on the table. I felt tears welling up, this was real change, not a facade. Emotional neglect, celebrated as the most harmful and pervasive form of mistreatment, thrives in everyday moments like this, but so does healing. Each time Lisa responded to a child's need, she was establishing a bridge with their heart and brain. Over the weeks, I observed shifts in the children too. Previously reserved and clinging, the girls began inviting Lisa into games, asking her to build castles or read aloud, and she responded without hesitation. Their giggles grew louder, their shared comfort settled in. Developmental research shows neglected children struggle with emotional awareness and social skills due to inconsistent caregiver engagement. Now, I could see those skills blossoming, day by day, in tiny, profound ways. But change is never linear. One Friday afternoon, I watched as Lisa worked a double shift and came home exhausted. The younger child tugged at her leg with a sobbing whine, and Lisa paced away, visibly frustrated. My heart clenched, hatred and empathy rose at once. But then Lisa came back, crouched down, and whispered, "I'm sorry, sweetie." For the first time, she acknowledged her struggle and stepped back into connection. That act of repair, for both child and self, is at the heart of healing from neglect. A few weeks later, Adam and Lisa sat together in the backyard playing with the kids. They laughed in unison, trading responsibilities and finished partnered tasks. It was real teamwork, contrasted with the isolation of earlier months. That kind of reciprocity, parents who learn to co-regulate stress and respond together, can literally reshape children's neurodevelopment. Recognizing how far Lisa had come, Sandy decided to test the boundaries of change. She asked Lisa to take over the kids on Saturday mornings so Sandy could go to her physical therapy appointment. Watching from the car, I saw Lisa handle tantrums and spills with patience and humor. She hugged Sandy and met her eyes with gratitude. Not one plea for help, just mutual, nurturing trust. I thought of research showing that when caregivers act sensitively and consistently, children build secure attachment, literally wiring resilience into their emotional systems. Yet, at times, the old pattern still crept in. One Sunday afternoon, Lisa glared at the TV for interrupting her planned rest. She snapped at the kids, a moment of unresolved stress. But within seconds, she caught herself, took a breath, and said, "Let's do something fun instead." No blame, no guilt spiral, just repair and redirection. Every such moment stripped away intergenerational neglect, rewriting patterns that echo across generations. The real test came at a small family gathering. Normally, Lisa would retreat, absorbed in her phone. Instead, she played Simon Says with both kids, sang silly songs, kept score, encouraged sibling cooperation. I watched the children beam, and I knew the capacity for change had taken root, deep and irreversible. That evening, Lisa pulled me aside. "Thank you, for not giving up on me." She wasn't panicked or defensive. She was vulnerable, aware, and profoundly human. Breaking patterns isn't about condemnation, it's about transformation. The household was calmer but still real, not ideal, but grounded. The children were developing joyful, stable bonds. Lisa and Adam were rediscovering their partnership. Sandy was freed to tend to herself with trust. Emotional neglect doesn't vanish with a single apology, but it can be overcome by consistent, heart-led presence. As I tucked in that night, the four eyes, two girls, two parents, reflected in the bedroom door. They had accepted each other, struggled, said sorry, repaired. Not perfect, but determined. And in that moment, I believed their story, not of neglect, but of reclamation and love, had become something worth celebrating. By midsummer, the household felt transformed from brittle to resilient. One late afternoon, I found Lisa and the girls gathered under a sprawling oak in the backyard, Lisa patiently explaining how to identify different flowers. The younger tots listened in wonder, soft laughter filling the air. She'd left her phone inside, intentionally present in a way that felt deliberate, not accidental. That moment, more than any forced routine, felt like genuine repair. Change became more pronounced in the children. I noticed the 3-year-old now ran to Lisa when distressed, not to Adam or Sandy. The older sister offered her own tiny hand in comfort. These gestures, even so simple, signaled that secure attachment was edging back into their little psyches. The human brain, especially in early childhood, depends on responsive caregiving to stabilize stress systems, a finding backed by developmental neuroscience. Despite past emotional neglect, the girls now spoke more, shared more, and engaged more, proof that early disruptions to attachment can be reversed with sustained presence. That weekend, I accompanied Sandy to a pottery class, leaving Lisa in charge. The next morning, I returned to find the backyard scattered with hand-painted bowls, Lisa's phone nowhere in sight, and the girls beaming at their creations. She looked at me shyly and said, "I didn't want them to miss this." It was not dramatic, but it was enough. Apologies and actions like this are at the heart of reconnecting emotionally. When caregivers admit their missteps and work to correct them, it models accountability and emotional intelligence. Later, Adam shared how Lisa joked with the girls at bedtime, something he hadn't seen in months. His face glowed in relief. He told me, "We are not perfect, but I think we're finally on the same team." Watching that reunion, even small, was like watching sunlight break through long clouds. Yet old patterns occasionally flared. One work night, Lisa returned from a week-long telehealth shift and retreated to her phone instead of greeting the girls. The 3-year-old, confused, whined, "Mama's busy." I caught Lisa's eyes, she looked torn. Instead of retreating further, she rose from the couch and knelt for a bedtime story. She paused midway through the page, sighed, and said, "Tell me your favorite part again." Her daughter immediately lit up. That turn, from detachment to return, was the essence of repair. According to attachment theory and neurological repair, these tiny acts reinforce trust and reshape neural expectations. Because emotional neglect often rewires the stress system, children can develop attention problems, poor emotional regulation, or academic delays. But healing isn't impossible. In our family, repair unfolded in moments: phone down, apology said, shared laughter, bedtime closeness. These are the practical markers of regained trust. That July, while babysitting the girls, I stepped aside and watched Lisa build a cardboard fort with them. She showed gentle leadership, directing, including, encouraging. Afterwards, the youngsters ran to Adam when he arrived home, and Lisa stepped back gracefully. It was awkward, imperfect, but it worked. Attachment-based interventions teach that caregivers don't need perfection, just presence, responsiveness, and repair. As summer faded, I realized this chapter wasn't about sudden transformation, it was about consistency. Year-round rituals remained: weekly date nights for Adam and Lisa, planned playtime, family walks, phone-free dinners. Sandy's health stabilized, and she attended her appointments. The household felt balanced, rooted in compassion, structure, and shared effort. On the last weekend before school resumed, Lisa approached me with a small card. "Thank you for believing in me." She'd drawn a heart with the girls' fingerprints. I hugged them tightly and whispered, "You made the choice." And in her warm smile, I saw something hopeful: not just a mother returning to her children, but a woman healed enough to step forward. This, I realized, is how families mend, not by condemnation, but by consistency, empathy, and repair. Emotional neglect leaves scars, but these scars can grow into pathways of strength, reinforced by love, apology, and commitment. And as I watched those sisters play tag under late summer sunshine, I believed our family had reclaimed something essential: not perfection, but connection. As autumn's first golden leaves drifted outside, our family settled into a warm, resilient rhythm that felt like healing in motion. One evening, I watched the girls deliberately slip their arms around Lisa's waist and ask her to read their favorite bedtime book, a request answered without hesitation. No phones, no distractions, just a mother entirely present. That moment crystallized everything. Responsive parenting, long delayed, was now giving these children the emotional scaffolding they desperately needed. Neuroscience tells us that sensitive caregiving, when consistent over time, significantly repairs the adverse impact of earlier neglect, nurturing emotional regulation and secure attachment that shape lifelong resilience. It wasn't always easy. One busy weekday, I returned from work to find Lisa leaned back, exhausted, the toddler already in her lap, eyes wide, looking for attention. Instead of retreating, Lisa looked up and said, "I'm here now. Let's read." Then she did. That tiny failure transformed into repair in a heartbeat, proof that sincere, imperfect responses in moments of stress are more powerful than flawless parenting. Research confirms that such swift repair helps rebuild trust and emotional security in children. Soon, I noticed subtle shifts: the older child inviting Lisa to play differently, the younger reaching for her hand at bedtime, Adam and Lisa exchanging morning texts about bedtime duty, a gesture of solidarity I never thought I'd see. This emotional reciprocity strengthened not just parental bonds, but the entire family's resilience, a phenomenon supported by intervention research showing that emotionally attuned couples foster secure attachment in children. In mid-November, I received a text from Sandy, breathing with relief. "I kept my therapy appointment today, without worrying about the kids." She had reclaimed her well-being. Later, I called Adam, who said, "Lisa helped me decompress after work, we just sat and talked." He sounded lighter, calmer, newly energized by partnership. The real breakthrough happened that December day in the living room when Lisa held the 2-year-old on her lap, coloring carefully drawn holiday cards. The older girl leaned in to admire her mother's steady hand. For the first time, Lisa looked at me and said, "I get it now, how worth it this is." And I saw not just a wife or a mother struggling under expectations, but a woman transformed by consistently choosing presence over withdrawal, apology over silence, and empathy over avoidance. We realized then that emotional neglect wasn't destiny, it could be changed through small acts sustained over time. Caregiver-focused interventions show exactly that. Parents learn to notice, repair, and co-regulate with their children, strengthening neural and relational development that bear lifelong benefits. At year's end, we gathered for a simple holiday brunch: no extravagance, no distractions, Just playful chaos, shared conversation, and Lisa asking each child what they loved about the past year. The answers came freely: a vacation memory, a new friend, a craft they made together. She listened. She validated. She connected. Later, as the kids napped, Sandy sighed, "I think we fixed it." I hugged her. We hadn't fixed everything, but we had changed the family dynamic from neglect and tension to responsiveness and rooted trust. I knew our work wasn't done. There will be days when life strains empathy, and distraction always waits. But the difference is now found in repair, not retreat. Connection is automatic, habituated into our life. The old patterns no longer run us. That night, I tucked both girls into bed with Lisa nearby. She paused, looked at me, and mouthed silently, "Thank you." I nodded. Because it was a thank you earned through compassion, time, and courageous vulnerability. This story isn't a fairy tale, it's evidence that emotional neglect can be reversed through accountability, apology, mindful presence, and simple, consistent acts of love. We didn't need perfection, just persistence. Our children, once at risk of learning emotional distance, now grow confident in connection. And in the quiet aftermath, our family learned, healing is possible when we choose to show up, repair, and, most of all, remain present. Story 4. When my sister's situationship invades our just us time and I'm running out of patience. Ever since January, my sister and I had a pact: no one else joins our workouts. Just two sisters, hitting the gym together at dawn, sharing stretch sessions, sweaty showers, smoothies, and sleepovers afterward. We even started our week together, came home talking about workouts more than anyone else in the world. According to a study, exercising with someone else increases endorphins, syncs motivation, and forges bonds stronger than solo sessions. That's what we were building, our own fortress of accountability and connection. But then came C, the guy my sister saw casually at first. He started dropping her off, waiting in the car. At first, it was okay. Then, the waiting moved inside, recapping workouts over protein shakes, laughing at minor jokes, leaning against the glass wall of my living room as though it were his own space. By March, they weren't hiding anything. She leaned in, he stayed late, their chemistry was obvious. I stared from the sidelines, torn. I was happy for her, yet irate. My gym pact, our time, was being invaded. It wasn't just emotional discomfort. Research shows that having a consistent workout partner creates structure, support, and trust, especially for family members like sisters, and pushes people to train harder and stick to routines. It's more than routine, it's emotional architecture. And that architecture was cracking. It escalated. He didn't just watch, he started working out with us. One evening I arrived carrying gym bags, and saw his shape in the locker room mirror. My breath caught. He flashed a polite grin and slipped inside. My sister shrugged subtly and winked at me, like everything was fine. But something in me shattered. Our pact, the private jokes, the playlist debates, all diluted as he walked in. I should have spoken sooner. But he's respectful, polite, even drills out reps with a solid form. I'd seen Reddit posts about people who lost motivation without a gym buddy. This didn't feel like betrayal, but sabotage, emotional sabotage. I didn't want to be unreasonable or mean. I admired that he supported my sister, helped with weights and reps. But by the locker room, my grip squeezed the strap of my bag until my knuckles were white. My chest tightened. After workout, my sister asked, "Are you okay?" I put on a half smile. "I'm annoyed," I confessed, voice low. "I want our time back." It was said softly, but it was honest. I felt guilty, but also right. She looked away, searching. Then she said quietly, "I get it. But..." She paused. "But having him there makes me feel safer. I don't want to exclude him." I nodded, masking the sting. We'd hit the heart of it. I needed boundaries. She needed support. Our fortress was threatened, but maybe it could evolve. The next night, I returned to the gym in the half-light of the lobby, determined to reclaim my space. As I added my water to the cooler station, I watched my sister and C stroll in together, sweaty and laughing. My throat tightened, not at C personally, but at what he represented, an intrusion into my sacred sister time. I decided then that something had to change. I studied the boundaries articles I'd read, how saying no doesn't make you rude, but clear, and that boundaries protect not just your relationships but your mental health. I understood my feelings weren't selfish, they were valid signals. Later, after our workout, I asked my sister to grab a smoothie together. Once we were seated, I spoke softly, "Hey, can we talk?" She looked nervous but nodded. I explained, "I love you, and I love our gym routine. But when C shows up unannounced, I feel pushed out. My voice wavered, not accusatory, but honest. I want that space back. It's important to me. She listened, nodding slowly. I felt the tension ease as I continued. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. But we made a pact. I want us to honor it. I mentioned I'd feel better if she told me in advance when he might join, and only once a week. She looked at me with concern. She wanted to balance our pact with her growing bond with C. Drawing from boundary-setting advice, I gently added, I need space just for us, no overlap. She reached across the table, touched my arm. Okay, she whispered. That makes sense. It was honest, clear, using I statements, respectful yet firm, traits experts say are vital for setting boundaries. Over the next week, the space between us filled with a lighter energy. When C dropped by, I felt a flash of unease, then remembered our plan. I softened. He was polite. But I avoided conversational pitfalls by answering briefly and stepping away when our workout began. I stuck to that boundary without drama, intentionally, patiently. At the end of our next gym session, she nudged me. Thanks for being honest, she said. And I answered, thank you for listening. Just like therapy advice says, asserting your needs isn't selfish, it protects your identity and respect. That Saturday morning, C showed up uninvited again. I felt a pang. But I waited until after our workout and said, hey C, can we talk? I looked him in the eye. I'm glad you support my sister. But we had an agreement, our own time here. I want it to stay that way. I spoke calmly, directly. He paused, nodded, and said quietly, understood. I'll give you space. It was non-accusatory, clear, respectful. In the days that followed, our sister bond became stronger. We returned to playlists, inside jokes, shared dreams. We even added a bonus yoga night, just us. She gave me a grateful smile as we headed into winter's first snowfall workout, and I realized boundaries aren't about losing connections, they're about nurturing them. A week after setting our boundaries, Wednesdays only for the three of us, no surprises, something shifted. The gym felt like ours again. As C warmed up in the corner, my sister and I fell into our old rhythm, synchronized sets, matching playlists, weekend breakfast plans. For the first time in months, the tight knot in my chest loosened. We were reconnecting, quietly and meaningfully. This didn't just restore our routine, it refreshed our bond. According to family systems theory, siblings thrive when supported individuality and mutual attention coexist. Our workouts became more than fitness, they were zones of sisterly solidarity. We talked about college dreams, family gossip, playlists, and I realized how much I'd missed sharing space without competition or compromise. Emotionally, it helped both of us. I practiced I statements, like, I feel left out when he shows up unplanned, and heard her respond with empathy, not defensiveness. This echoes expert advice on sibling conflict. Open, honest communication reduces misdirection and builds trust. My sister replied, I didn't realize how our pact mattered so much to you. Her understanding felt like the first step toward healing. We didn't stop there. That weekend, we declared Sunday morning sister time, solo yoga or brunch, just the two of us. No C, no interruptions, just sister sanctuary. The novelty and effort echoed research on reinforcing sibling bonds. Shared activities anchored in mutual interests help reshape positive connections. Of course, it wasn't flawless. One Wednesday, C showed up without warning. My heart raced. She nudged him, hey, last time was the only day. He paused, then respected the boundary. I felt relief, not vindication. It wasn't about shutting him out, but protecting us. When he left, she squeezed my shoulder. Thanks, she offered. In these moments, we were rewriting our rules. Our evolving dynamic reflected healthy boundary-setting principles: identifying needs, need our space, communicating clearly, Wednesdays only, heads up please, and following through consistently. By reinforcing, not rescinding, our boundaries, we weren't pushing each other away, we were honoring each other's values. The change rippled outward. C stopped assuming he'd be included. He still smiled at me, complimented my squat form, but respected the space. My sister seemed more at ease, joyful again, unfiltered. And I could finally breathe, free from resentment and raw emotion. That's when I paid attention to what might have driven me so hard. In the years before, she'd always been the social one, outgoing, confident, jokey. I'd been the quieter, reflective one. Our gym pact had helped me feel seen and connected. When it frayed, I felt unseen, not just by C, but by her. Now, we were weaving our emotional tapestries back together, caring enough to speak up, brave enough to listen, and steady enough to rebuild. On our next workout, she paused mid-set, locked eyes with me, and said, "Thank you for being brave." I nodded, tears surprising me. "Thank you for listening." It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. We'd strengthened our bond not by retreating apart, but by leaning into honest intimacy. Together, we found our way back, and how rare and beautiful that is. Sibling expert advice reminds us, healthy bonds stem from mutual respect, shared experiences, and flexible boundaries. And that's exactly what we built, a relationship with space to grow, space to breathe, and space to belong. Several weeks after defining our gym-only lift pact, Wednesdays only, C joins at his own risk, the atmosphere between us shifted from strained to steady. One afternoon, as we balanced lunges side by side, my sister whispered, "I miss this." Her smile mirrored mine, and for the first time in months, I felt the old rhythm return, the seamless sync of shared playlists, jokes mid-rep, and those after-gym smoothies that felt like inside jokes translated into taste. We decided to add a sister-only ritual, Sunday cooking sessions, 2 hours, no interruptions. One weekend, we chopped fresh basil for pesto, swapped stories from the week, laughed over memory lane, and created a new playlist titled Sister Sanctuary. It wasn't just food, it was reclaiming space. Family therapy experts say that shared activities within healthy boundaries rebuild closeness and trust. I realized how much smaller my world felt when that pact was broken, and how much it could expand again when honored. It didn't mean excluding C forever. He still greeted me politely, trained in the next bay during our session, and sometimes offered coaching tips to my sister, and I didn't feel threatened. Boundaries aren't fences to build walls, they're bridges to reconnect on better terms. I was free to appreciate his kindness without dissolving our own agreement. We faced tests too. One Wednesday, she forgot to tell him he couldn't work out with us, and he walked in. I felt the old wave of irritation rise. But my sister pulled him aside and said quietly, "Not today, thanks." He smiled with understanding and backed away. There was no defensiveness, just clarity, respect, and follow-through. That moment crystallized what boundaries look like in action. Our bond began to flourish. We dared to plan a hiking weekend, just the two of us, packing backpacks with snacks, playlists, and ideas for the year ahead. We walked winding trails, talked deep truths under pines, and laughed about how we almost lost track of time. According to relational psychologists, such one-on-one shared adventures deepen trust and emotional intimacy, not because of the activity, but the mutual attention we bring into them. During those walks, we revisited our conversation, why the gym pact mattered and how easily good intentions slip unless we guard them with presence and honesty. We recognized something deeper: our sisterhood isn't just routine, it's a sanctuary, a place to feel seen and known. Back at home, we continued our Sunday cooking. Sometimes we invited C for a single dish, signing up for one dish he'd bring if he came, preserving our rhythm and allowing flexibility. This balance honored our bond without isolating anyone. It felt adult, mature, and emotionally intelligent, something not taught as kids, but learned through listening and caring. I no longer felt hatred toward him, only appreciation for clarity. He respected our pact. My sister honored her promise. And I found myself unaffected by his presence, rooted instead in what mattered most. As autumn approached and leaves turned, we sat by the kitchen window and looked over our rituals. She squeezed my hand, eyes soft, "Thank you, for guarding us." And I whispered back, "Thank you for understanding." We'd built something precious again, sisterhood grown stronger in the soil of honesty, boundaries, and tough love. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away, they're about protecting what helps us grow. And what we protect together, that we can flourish. As the season changed, so did our energy. Thursday evenings became our stretch and chat ritual, no interruptions, no surprises, just sister time. We'd lie on yoga mats surrounded by houseplants and fairy lights, decompressing from the week. C might wave hello, but we belonged to our sister space. Those moments revived the intimacy that first made our gym pact sacred. Experts say that consistent shared experiences, especially among sisters, foster emotional resilience and mutual support. Our evening routine echoed this. Their laughter mixed with silence became a lifeline for our bond. I realized tears don't need drama, sometimes they flow simply because connection returns. When C showed up surprised during one of these sessions, my sister gently reminded him, "Tonight's us time, but see you Friday." He nodded with respect, then offered me a thumbs up. It wasn't confrontation, it was recognition. Boundaries need not feel harsh, they're declarations of caring and respect, and he understood that signal clearly. We didn't keep C completely away, we invited him to join brunch or a weekend hike. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're guardrails. They protect what's precious without shutting out connection. On one Saturday beach day, he carried snacks and towels, sat at a distance, and only engaged when invited. It felt relaxed and respectful. And I didn't resent him, I respected him for respecting us. I watched how my sister's tone softened too. She'd whisper during exercises, "Thanks for understanding." Her gratitude felt like healing. According to relational models, expressing thanks strengthens bonds, boosting emotional trust over time. Our pact became more than workouts, it restored a sense of self. I realized healthy boundaries allow individuals to grow together without losing identity. My sister and I found ourselves, side by side, in sync, laughing about old songs, sharing future plans. We weren't closing each other off, we were opening up to each other, guarded yet safe. One Sunday, we introduced a joint journal. Each week we wrote reflections, book quotes, or sketchy doodles. Sometimes we shared them, often we didn't. It was enough to know the other existed deeply in our thoughts, a quiet harmony built on reliability and respect. That evening, I looked at her across the kitchen counter and said quietly, "I feel safe again." Her hand found mine. "Me too," she answered. "Thank you, for being brave with boundaries." And I thought, bravery isn't always loud, it's gentle, consistent, tethered to love. Boundaries are not detachment, they're devotion. And sisterhood thrives not when space is empty, but when room is carved for trust, honesty, and respect. By winter's turn, our sister routine was no longer fragile, it was flourishing. Mid-December, the gym lights were warm against the cold, and I felt a quiet pride as my sister and I wrapped up our final workout of the year. She leaned in and whispered, "I couldn't have done this without you." Those words landed deeper than any protein shake ever could, they were proof our pact had become a lifeline. To solidify our bond, we created annual traditions. Every winter solstice, we shared a homemade cocoa blend and reflected on the past year. Every summer, we picked daisies by the lake. We even crafted a sister code and a shared journal, affirmations, memories, and future goals. Research confirms that consistent shared rituals strengthen sibling relationships by fostering trust, predictability, and emotional safety. These small, deliberate acts built a foundation immunity against future rifts. But the true test arrived during a holiday party packed with family, friends, and yes, see earlier, his easy camaraderie used to feel like intrusion. Now, it felt balanced. He greeted me with a respectful nod, and my sister steered us toward the glow of string lights under the patio, our favorite spot for inside jokes. Halfway through the night, I noticed them shift, see in line for a conversation with my sister. Instead of anxiety, I felt calm. I approached quietly and placed a hand on her arm. She glanced at me, catching the signal. It was our sacred winter night reserved for sisters. She gave C a gracious hug, excused herself, and said to me, "My turn." No drama, just mutual care. Our boundary held, despite temptation. Psychologists note that clear and consistently held boundaries enhance mutual respect and diminish sibling enmeshment. That night, we stood side by side, laughter sparkling, and I realized our relationship had matured from fragile to flourishing. Later, as we started the cozy drive home in December snow, she reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, for this year, for the pact, for us." I felt tears but smiled, "Thank you for cherishing it." We both knew this bond, beyond routines, was anchored for life. I tracked through the year how our transformations mirrored sibling dyad research, rituals, clear boundary moments, and mutual acknowledgments fortified us against outside pressures. Our sisterhood wasn't because we hadn't faced conflict, but because we chose honesty, respect, and intentional closeness, over simplicity or convenience. As we walked inside, I glanced back at the sky, stars bright in cold air. In that moment, I understood, our journey had taught us something vital. Boundaries aren't barriers to love, they are the bridges that hold it steady. Through honesty, ritual, and growing respect, we had crafted sisterhood not just for now, but for whatever comes next. As winter melted into spring, our sisterly bond, sturdy yet flexible, took on a remarkable life of its own. One Sunday morning, we found ourselves laughing over spilled chia pudding and music playlists in cozy pajamas long after brunch had cooled. Unexpectedly, C knocked, curious whether he could join for a light workout. Without hesitation, my sister smiled and said, "Sorry, it's just our sister morning." There was warmth in her tone, not exclusion, but protection. That nuanced boundary, expressed kindly yet firmly, reflected what family therapists advise: boundaries don't shut people out, they safeguard the spaces that matter most, but must be communicated with care. That afternoon, I shared an article with her about sisters boosting each other's mental health. She raised an eyebrow and then laughed. It says having a sister makes you a better person. Studies show sisters foster compassion, communication skills, and resilience, a truth I felt every rep, laugh, and secret shared alongside her. We also began piloting weekly evening check-ins, 10 minutes over tea just to ask, how are we doing? Not about C or boundaries, but about us and our ongoing bond. This regular check-in mirrored sibling therapy principles. Rituals strengthen relationships over time by promoting open communication and shared responsibility. When stress crept in, like the day Mom commented that we were excluding C, we talked it through quietly before exterior noise forced us apart. I expressed, it's just us tonight. Not about him. She nodded. We navigated family pushback without resentment. Experts say ongoing conversations help renegotiate boundaries as life changes, rather than let resentment build unnoticed. Several evenings later, we decided to invite C to join us, on our terms. We texted him, Sunday hike? Bring protein bars. He grinned and accepted. We hiked at sunrise, shared snacks, and he ended with a smile that said clearly, thanks for including me. I realized that some circles are meant to stay small while others open broad. Healthy relationships can welcome others without compromising core. Research shows sibling relationships flourish with team-mindedness balanced with autonomy. By late spring, I found myself offering to bring extra smoothie mixes to the gym, not just for us, but for whoever joined. My sister shot me a grateful smile, and I realized, we'd grown past the threat of invasion into a place of inclusion and mutual trust. And forcing myself to expand my heart, not ignoring my needs, felt like a genuine, confident choice. One afternoon, after a particularly tough day, my sister hugged me during cool down and whispered, I love us. I told her, I love this, our space, our trust, our boundaries. We breathed in the warmth, knowing we'd intentionally crafted a bond that respected individuality and intimacy. Our journey reflects what sibling experts call a harmonious relationship, high on warmth and support, with healthy conflict and clear boundaries. We learned together, boundaries aren't barriers, they are the frames around our love story. It's not perfect, we still reset when the unspoken rifts resurface. But now we handle them, together. I trust her. She trusts me. And that trust echoes in our shared rituals, workouts, brunches, hiking, anchored by honesty and care. One evening, we sat quietly under fairy lights, looking at old photos of our childhood. My sister held my hand and said, thanks for loving me even when I tried to include someone else. I squeezed back, thank you for choosing me too. And in that simple embrace, I understood, this sister sanctuary we built won't crumble under change, it's anchored in trust, respect, and the knowledge that good boundaries don't separate, they strengthen. In the quiet glow of the gym lights, we wrapped up our final sister-only workout, the echo of laughter still lingering. My sister pulled me in close, her eyes warm and steady, and whispered, thank you for this, thank you for us. I saw then that what we rebuilt wasn't just ritual, but trust. We had learned that boundaries, and the courage to ask for them, don't divide, they unite. As we walked home side by side, I realized our bond was no longer fragile, but rooted, ready to grow through whatever came next. And in that steady rhythm of sisterhood, I knew, this was not just an ending, it was our foundation. Story 5, he's 13 years younger, but these weekly routines made us family. I often feel like a terrible older brother. I care deeply, so deeply I sometimes can't breathe under the weight of trying, but connecting with someone who's 13 years younger than me is like speaking through an echo chamber. I see him on weekends or during Zoom calls, hear his jokes, watch him play, yet when I try to respond, I feel lost. And then retreat into silence. The result? I'm alone again, and somehow, even more alone. He's 10 now, right in the heart of middle childhood, where social bonds are expanding and identities forming. My memories of being 10 feel distant, late night video games, homework in my room, the suburban drudgery mixed with childish dreams. I want to bridge that world with his, but I'm stuck in mine. As a 23-year-old, I'm deep into my own world, a dead-end job, weekend mooching, a messy apartment I don't want him to see. I ask myself, do I even know how to be a brother? I picture lingering conversations around the dinner table from my childhood, my sister teasing me, Dad reminding me to pass the peas, but that feels not just distant, but impossible now. When I try to share a meme or ask about his school, his head jerks to one side and he walks away. So I wait, waiting for him to make the next move. But he rarely does. Silence swallows me. I feel confusion, not heartbreak, but deep, disorienting sadness. He's my family. He's still the kid I once was, but also someone I can never quite reach. Experts on sibling bonding, especially across large age gaps, say that these relationships can become unique, centered around mentorship, emotional support, and shared worlds if both sides lean in. Yet Lean and I cannot, there is a barrier, raised by my own self-doubt. How do I even begin? Is showing up enough? Or do I need to do something, create moments, plan events, offer guidance, share my life? I'm torn. I want that bond. I want him to mumble down the phone, "Bro, guess what?" And for me to rush across town, scoop him up and fold him into the biggest hug I can manage. But I don't know how. And when I try, asking about his videos or offering to play Fortnite, I feel awkward, forced. He cancels. And I cancel our next call. Again. So here I am, rambling on the internet, admitting I'm lost. Because what I want is enough, but what he needs isn't me. Yet I'm scared if I step back, that bond will vanish forever. Maybe showing the world that I'm searching for him is the first step toward finding him. After I poured everything out online, something changed. A wave of unexpected replies. A childhood parenting article said mindset matters, mentorship over friendship, guidance over pleasantries. We might click not by acting as peers, but as life teachers. Another post told me, start small, do one shared task that suits both ages, cooking pancakes, building Lego, teaching him guitar chords. Repeat that every week. So I gave it a shot. I ordered a pancake kit, rolled up my sleeves and called him, "Hey sport, you want to help me flip these?" He smiled at my voice and said yes. We cooked breakfast together. I scrambled eggs, he dumped flour. When it was done, he watched, fascinated, then took a bite and said, "These are epic." It wasn't a perfect moment, it took me 10 minutes to tame the smoke alarm and he ended up pouring sugar by the cup, but after we ate, I felt something shift. Like I'd stepped off the edge of awkward into a place with him. That night, I told our mom, cooking worked. He laughed. He ate more than cereal. I felt fire in my chest, something I've missed for years, pride in being useful. I kept it going. Chess moves on Saturday afternoons. Brief walks to the park. He shadowed me in the kitchen, asked questions about my old band, watched me tune my guitar and offered high fives when I nailed a chord. He watched me as I watched him. Then came his request, "Teach me that song." I froze. It was real. I spent all weekend teaching him the intro chord of Riptide. He struggled at first, fingers sore, then got it. When he played it 5 times in a row, I wanted to cry. What matters here is as much the act as the intent. Developmental psychology says older siblings often become mentors across age gaps, teaching, modeling, protecting, filling a unique, lifelong role. I don't have to entertain or manipulate closeness. I have to show up consistently. We now have 3 daily routines: pancake Saturday, chess Sunday, guitar Tuesday. He doesn't always want to. Sometimes he rolls his eyes. I don't care. Consistent presence matters more than enthusiasm. A study of middle-aged adult siblings found that frequency of contact predicts cognitive benefit and emotional closeness much more than closeness itself. So I text him, "Pancake reminder." He says yes half the time. We hang out when we can. Enough. We even agreed on boundary questions. "Bro, Fortnite next week? Or help me cook tacos?" We're bridging the age gap one gesture at a time. And I'm learning not to go back to being alone. Because being there, even in spats, cancellations, bland moments, adds up. At dinner one night, he said, "Bro, thanks." I paused mid-chew. I swallowed. I winked, anytime. I believed it. Because every moment, he's saying something too. And if we keep showing up, maybe 15 years from now, he'll be teaching me something, and that might be the bond I've always wanted. A few weeks into our new rhythm, I started noticing subtle yet powerful shifts in our relationship. I'd always thought that being there was enough. But the wisdom I'd gleaned, from pancake Saturdays to guitar Tuesdays, taught me that intentional presence creates trust. Psychology research confirms that siblings who engage in shared activities experience enhanced emotional intelligence, a deeper sense of belonging, and stronger social skills. One crisp Saturday morning, I arrived early for our usual pancake session and found him already mixing batter, grinning like he'd discovered a secret. He looked up and said, "Bro, I added blueberries." I felt my heart contract with pride. He was co-creating our ritual rather than passively consuming it. That moment, simple as it was, showed that our relationship had moved beyond awkward hesitancy to genuine partnership. Our shared tasks earned new meaning. Together we built a tiny herb garden, me guiding the spade, him carefully planting seedlings. We cheered when the first sprouts appeared. This followed best practice suggestions, creating shared traditions, nurturing teamwork, and offering growth experiences. Each weekly ritual wove emotional thread lines into our connection, strengthening our bond one consistent action at a time. Then came another milestone. He asked if he could join me on a night walk. We grabbed jackets and headed out under streetlights. We talked about school projects, life hacks, and why he loved that new video game. He looked up at me and said, "I feel like I get you now." I realized, that's what I'd been craving too. Still, not every routine went smoothly. One Wednesday, he bailed last minute, choosing friends instead. My ego flared, but I channeled empathy, an important growth moment for both of us. I sent a quick text, "No worries, next time." A ripple of tension dissolved. Research shows that flexibility in sibling bonds, accepting changes without retracting affection, is a sign of emotional maturity. Later that week, I found myself cooking dinner solo again. I joked to my partner, "I miss my sous chef." She asked, "Why don't you invite him next time?" Impulsively, I texted him, "Pizza night? Your call." He replied immediately, "I'm in." Simple. Authentic. No pressure. By mid-season, I noticed something else. Our collisions, too, felt constructive. We disagreed over music choices during dinner. I wanted classic rock, he said he wanted hip-hop beats. Instead of tension, we paused and listened, then created a playlist that alternated both. In that moment, I realized sibling relationships aren't always about functions or fixes, they're about dynamic, mutual adjustment. Now, our rituals hold space for both presence and autonomy. We share pancakes or pizza, but sometimes he joins with a friend. Those mornings still feel like collabs, not cop-outs. Family systems research shows that while sibling bonds are involuntary, they need conscious care to thrive, and that shared rituals reinforce family identity and resilience through life's twists. One evening, after a quiet ping from him, "Thanks for tonight," I felt the weight of years of uncertainty lifting. I realized, I don't have to be a perfect brother. I just have to keep showing up, stay real, and let the rituals, small, consistent, intentional, do their work. Because in the tapestry of my life, our connection is now a vibrant thread, not a loose end. And that is enough. By late spring, our weekly rituals had woven themselves into the fabric of our brotherhood. Pancake Saturdays, pizza nights, and evening walks no longer felt like forced routines, they had become the warm constants I never knew I needed. Studies show that spending as little as 10 hours a week together in meaningful shared activities fosters social competence, empathy, and emotional resilience in both older and younger siblings. I saw that truth flash in his eyes as we leaned over chess boards or cheered each other on during street lamp strolls. But our bond was tested by real life, a busy project at my job, his new video game obsession, and weekday fatigue. One Thursday I returned home drained and nearly canceled our walk. My phone buzzed softly. "Still on for tonight?" he'd asked. My guilt mumbled in my chest. I typed back, "Yes, I'm coming. See you at 7. That 10-second decision kept the bridge from cracking when life demanded distance. Research indicates that consistent presence, even when inconvenient, is more powerful than grand gestures, and builds trust over time. It's not perfection, it's perseverance. That evening, he greeted me at the door with a grin and hot chocolate in hand. We walked under streetlights and talked about everything from soccer tryouts to summer jobs. I listened without agenda, which made a difference. Good sibling relationships thrive on unconditional presence, not always advice. I realized something profound. Mentoring him didn't mean taking charge. It meant showing up. A few weeks later, we cooked dinner together. He chopped peppers while I stirred sauce. Mid-recipe, he paused and said, "Bro, thanks for doing this with me." That moment felt bigger than any award. It was emotional currency. Researchers confirm that older siblings boost their younger siblings' empathy and confidence, creating deep relational bonds. Every stir, every shared laugh folded us closer together. There were disagreements too. One night we argued about TV shows. I wanted a documentary, he wanted cartoons. Instead of dismissing him, I suggested flipping a coin, but he compromised, half documentary, half cartoon. It was a small moment, a test in fairness and respect. Conflict like this can actually strengthen sibling bonds when handled with mutual empathy and flexibility. We emerged laughing and feeling seen. Our continued rituals proved powerful. Our Spotify playlist, mixing his favorites with my oldies, mirrored affection exchange research showing that mutual listening and shared joy promote long-term connection. Each time he smiled at a song he recognized, I knew our relationship wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. One Saturday morning, he presented me with a crudely drawn brother award, a certificate praising best bro ever. His grin beamed insecurity and pride all at once. I realized I didn't need to perfect the role. I only needed to be his brother. That awkward younger sibling I once barely knew had become someone I'd spend a lifetime with. Research suggests brother recognition like this reinforces emotional bonds and self-esteem for both parties. By the end of the season, the dynamic had shifted. We still canceled sometimes. We still disagreed at times. But there was trust. He knew I'd show up, I knew he'd try, and we both knew there was space for real connection, small, consistent, evolving. Our rituals had transformed our relationship from distant to deep. And in each pancake flipped, each chord learned, each walk shared, we stitched together a brotherhood neither of us dared dream possible. The age gap remained, but our shared actions had woven a bridge across it, strong enough to sustain us for years to come. By midsummer, our routine had become something I once doubted possible: meaningful connection. Each ritual, pancake Saturdays, chess Sundays, guitar Tuesdays, held chunks of trust, laughter, and mutual recognition. These shared moments aren't just legacy, they're building emotional resilience for both of us. Studies show that siblings who spend about 10 hours a week in constructive and unstructured activities experience greater social competence, improved self-esteem, and better emotional regulation. One evening, after a full day at work, I felt drained and tempted to cancel our guitar session. But before I could text, I glanced at the clock and remembered his enthusiasm. So I went. He greeted me at the door, guitar in hand, and grinned bright. We spent the night practicing chords and laughing at my lousy rhythm. I realized that consistency matters more than perfection, just showing up builds trust. Psychologists emphasize that older siblings act as mentors, modeling empathy and problem-solving skills, a role strengthening younger siblings' emotional development. That weekend, we agreed to build a small bookshelf together. I drilled holes, he helped align the planks. When the shelf wobbled, we fixed it, and high-fived at our success. This moment exemplified co-construction. Older siblings guiding younger ones, scaffolding skills through shared projects. It wasn't just about building wood, it was about building connection, confidence, and teamwork. Conflict still arose. One afternoon, our pizza night almost derailed when we couldn't agree on toppings, his insistence on pineapple clashing with my deep dish sensibilities. Instead of insisting, I asked him to pick half and I'd pick half. We compromised, video game tunes on Spotify with 50-50 playlists. That small exercise in mutual respect mirrored key sibling research. Shared decision-making and conflict resolution strengthened bonds and emotional intelligence. Our connection deepened in subtle ways too. He started initiating, "Want to go for a walk?" I nodded. "Can you help with my math homework?" I helped. In these moments, the hierarchy shifted, no longer just older teaching younger, but mutual growth. Sociology research reveals that sibling power dynamics naturally become more equal over time when siblings sustain positive interaction and respect. One Tuesday, I found a doodle he'd slipped into my guitar case, a cartoon of us playing together with a caption, "Best bro ever." I laughed, tears in my eyes. That simple drawing worked like emotional glue. Sibling recognition, whether verbal or creative, reinforces identity and belonging, bolstering mental well-being. I've learned that being a strong brother isn't flashy gestures, it's quiet presence, shared rituals, and mutual respect. The benefits extend beyond us. Sibling research finds these strong bonds buffer against stress, promote emotional and social resilience, and enrich overall family wellness. Now, as summer shifts to fall, we still miss sessions. We still clash. But our emotional safety net is woven tight. He knows I'll be there, guitar, pancakes, or just open ears. And I know he's learning, growing, and accepting me, bro, mentor, friend. Our bond isn't perfect, but it's alive, evolving, and real. By early autumn, our bond had evolved into something steady yet vibrant. What began as junior attempts at pancakes and chord strumming matured into genuine camaraderie and shared purpose. Research shows that sibling relationships built on regular, meaningful interaction cultivate strong emotional security and social competence. We were living proof of that. One crisp evening, I found him at the piano, awkwardly fingering the notes to a song we'd practiced. My heart swelled. I realized he was taking moments for us, even when I wasn't around. We sat together, and I invited him to try harmonizing. His face lit up, not just because he learned a tune, but because we made music. That collaboration mirrored studies showing that older siblings guide younger ones through joint endeavors, modeling skills and nurturing empathy. Our monthly tradition of brother outing Saturdays became an anchor. One weekend, we volunteered together at a neighborhood park, planting flowers, picking up litter. I watched him proudly show off our work. These acts weren't just chores, they were shared values, forging emotional depth. Experts call this sibling revelry, shared joy and cooperation that strengthen bonds and foster resilience. Not everything was seamless. One rainy evening, he told me he couldn't make brunch because he wanted to hang out with his friends. My chest tightened. Was I being brushed off? But instead of reacting, I said, "Okay. Next week is still ours." His relief was evident. He needed autonomy within our ritual. Sibling research confirms that flexibility within consistent bonds promotes maturity and mutual respect. That same week, I received a handmade card. "Thanks, big bro." He drew us high-fiving. No caption needed, the message was clear. Sibling acknowledgement, aired freely, reinforces belonging and identity. That simple card reminded me that being a reliable presence matters more than grand gestures. We also navigated disagreements. One night, trying to cook together, I mistakenly seasoned soup too aggressively. He stopped, laughed, and proposed exploring Mediterranean spices next time. We adjusted the recipe and behavior together. It was a microcosm of sibling cooperation, compromise, learning, evolving. Such interactions build conflict resolution skills and emotional regulation, essential for lifelong relational health. By winter, our sibling rituals had become true anchors. We continued monthly park work, bi-weekly music sessions, and random late-night jokes. Our relationship mirrored a continuum from childhood, where shared routines build trust, to adulthood, where mutual respect and identity acknowledgement sustain it. One chilly evening, he asked me seriously, "Bro, what matters most?" I paused, saw sincerity in his eyes, and replied, "Showing up, caring, even when it's messy." He nodded, understanding that bonds aren't perfect, they're built in real, shared moments. For the first time, I felt confident saying, "I'm proud to be your brother, not because I did something perfect, but because I stayed when it mattered." As winter gave way to spring, our relationship had matured, no longer defined by awkward silences or guilt, but by mutual presence, respect, and a shared rhythm that grounded us both. The routines we set, pancakes, guitar, park projects, haven't just been weekly commitments, they became anchors in our lives. According to sibling research, such consistent shared activities foster emotional security, social competence, and resilience through life's storms. Recently, he stood before me holding his first ever birdhouse, hands trembling with pride. He said, "We did this together, right, bro?" I saw it then. This isn't about me being a perfect role model, it's about us co-creating memories and skills that matter. Studies show that older siblings who co-construct activities like these enable their younger siblings to develop stronger problem-solving skills and empathy. We were both learning, growing, laughing, stumbling, and it clicked that brotherhood is not a title, but a relationship we build. Earlier that week, we had a low-energy pizza night, and he surprised me, "Bro, thanks for always being here." It wasn't the first time, but these words struck deeper than ever. Sibling acknowledgement reinforces belonging, identity, and long-term well-being. And I realized I didn't need to earn his respect, I just needed to stay. We've also mastered the art of flexibility. When he canceled our hike to play with friends, I texted, "Rain check." He replied, "You custom." I laughed because that's where trust blooms, knowing bonds endure even when plans shift. Such flexibility and forgiveness strengthen sibling bonds. Looking ahead, we're already planning. Summer camping trip. Monthly bro storage, a day to fix his bike, chat about life, and maybe teach him how to change a tire. As he nears teenage years, I know our rituals may need rethinking, and our conversations will change. Research reminds us that sibling support, not rivalry, predicts better academic performance and mental health. I'm determined he'll grow up knowing I'm on his side, even when times are hard. One evening, I reflected on my childhood and saw how birth order shaped me: high expectations, self-reliance, invisible responsibilities. Now I realize being a big brother isn't about carrying burdens, it's about sharing a journey. Not running ahead, but walking beside. My brother, 13 years younger, is teaching me trust, patience, and how small gestures, like pancakes or guitar chords, can weave resilience into life. As we walked the dog under slanting golden light, he looked up and said, "You are the best brother ever." I'm not perfect, but I don't have to be. I just have to stay present and willing to learn alongside him. That, I finally understand, is the core of brotherhood, the bridge we build together, step by step. By late winter, our bond had transformed, no longer defined by awkwardness or distance, but by trust, rituals, and shared growth. The rhythms of pancake Saturdays, guitar Tuesdays, park projects and pizza nights had sculpted a brotherhood neither of us expected. Psychological research confirms that siblings engaged in consistent, purposeful activities develop greater social competence, emotional resilience, and long-term well-being. One evening, as I walked through the kitchen, I found him carefully adjusting a model airplane under a lamp. He looked up and said with a grin, "Thought you'd want to see this." I realized then, it wasn't about me teaching him, but doing with him. Our roles had shifted from mentor and student to co-creators. Studies on co-construction and sibling dynamics highlight how such shared projects foster empathy, collaboration, and lasting attachment. That weekend, we volunteered at a community garden, planting, weeding, laughing. Working side by side, we spoke candidly about school, life, and he teased me back. These moments of revelry and cooperation, even amid occasional absorption in our tasks, strengthen sibling bonds and buffer against stress and emotional turmoil. Not everything stayed perfect. One rainy Thursday, he canceled our practice session in favor of seeing friends. My first instinct was frustration. But then I remembered, maturity grows when flexibility is honored. I messaged, "No worries, catch you next time." When I saw relief in his reply, I knew our bond was deeper than any schedule. Research shows that flexibility within structured relationships protects attachment and fosters resilience. Later, I received a scrawled note, "Bro, you're awesome." He had stuck it next to my keys. That small gesture reminded me that recognition, delivered in simple, heartfelt ways, reinforces belonging and identity. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about being present. We also had real conversations. One evening, he asked for advice about a tough school decision. I didn't lecture, I shared what I'd learned: mistakes, resilience, how to stand up for yourself. This relational modeling aligns with studies showing that older siblings who provide guidance and emotional support help younger ones develop confidence and problem-solving skills. Our sibling partnership reflected the hallmarks of familial resilience, a dynamic interplay of shared challenge, supportive presence, emotional bonding, and mutual adaptation. We had become not just brothers, but teammates. Looking forward, we planned a backyard camping weekend and a summer project to build a treehouse together. As he grows, I know our rituals will evolve, but the foundation remains: consistent presence, shared purpose, flexibility, and emotional respect. Studies show that strong sibling bonds in early adulthood protect against loneliness, anxiety, and depression later in life. One spring evening, while packing my guitar, he offered to help carry it. I looked at him, smart, confident, trusting. I hugged him tight and said, "You were the best little brother I could have asked for." He smiled, struggling with emotion, and said softly, "Same, bro." We didn't bridge a 13-year gap with grand gestures or forced friendship. We did it with pancakes, chords, shared sweat and laughter, simple kindnesses, and willingness to adapt. And in that ongoing companionship, I found what it means to truly be a brother, a lifelong commitment, built one small moment at a time. Story 6, when a manager kept texting me about my brother's shifts, so I drew the line. I, 26F, and my brother, Mike, 24M, both work at the same company, but in completely different roles and for different managers. My manager is a dream, flexible, respectful, and never texts outside work hours. Mike's manager, Gary, who's in his 50s, couldn't be more different. When Mike, anxious and eager to maintain boundaries, ignored work app notifications years ago, Gary simply started texting me instead. At first, I shrugged it off, occasional messages didn't hurt. But over time, it morphed into a pattern. Every time Gary needed Mike to cover a shift or pick up extra work, he texted me. It wasn't even in my department, and yet here I was, my phone buzzing with messages not meant for me. I told Gary 3 separate times, "I'm not Mike's assistant, please contact him directly." He ignored me. Now, every single text since Mike's rehiring has been about Mike. Not once have I received a message like, "Hey, how are you?" Even while I was on vacation, I got a text at the damn airport asking if Mike could work that weekend. I looked through our thread, every message referencing Mike's availability, schedule, or tasks. Not a single one addressed me personally. Cue resentment. I felt used, frustrated, and frankly, disrespected. I was never part of this conversation, yet I was expected to relay urgent demands, at all hours. I'm not his manager, coworker, or support staff. So I didn't reply to Gary's last message. And I'm seriously considering blocking his number at this point. I told him I'm done relaying. I'm not Mike's secretary. I'm not tech support. And I should not be responsible for his work commitment. Just wish some people would honor boundaries instead of exploiting loopholes. By Tuesday evening, my phone lit up with yet another message from Gary: "Can Mike cover Saturday shift?" It hit me like a slap, right there in the middle of my dinner at the kitchen table. Since Mike's return, I've been looped into every request under the assumption I'd relay it, but this time, I refused to carry that burden. So, I crafted a calm yet firm reply. Hi Gary, please contact Mike directly about his availability. I'm not on his team and don't manage his schedule. Thanks for understanding. I hit send, then, I muted his number. Almost instantly I felt relief washing over me. Muting Gary's texts didn't feel rude, it felt responsible. I wasn't avoiding conflict, I was drawing a professional boundary. Within half an hour, a new text popped in, from Mike's number. Gary here, can you cover Saturday? Mike responded himself, and that was the end of the rerouting. What happened next surprised me, the pattern shifted. For the first time in months, Gary texted directly to Mike, not me. I could see Mike reply, schedule things, organize his own shifts, and I sat back with a clear conscience. That simple exchange demonstrated something HR professionals emphasize. Consent is non-negotiable, especially when using personal phones to communicate work matters. My decision wasn't about refusing to help, but about reclaiming my professional space. When employers text outside work hours for non-urgent matters, they risk breaching boundaries, and even labor laws. Countries like Australia now have a right to disconnect law safeguarding those exact boundaries, and other global industries are moving in that direction too. I wasn't just being petty, I was aligning with a broader shift toward respecting personal time. Gary might not live in Australia's legal jurisdiction, but these modern norms still informed my stance. The ripple effect spread. Mike felt more in control, less anxious. He expressed gratitude. Thanks, sis, for finally shutting down that router to me. Now I feel like I own my schedule. That changed everything. Meanwhile, I began submitting feedback to HR about after-hours texting. Within weeks, a new right to disconnect policy appeared, clarifying that employees may refuse after-hours contact if it's not urgent and they're not comped. Everyone who opted out of work texting got a shield, a professional and personal win. I didn't block Gary forever, I simply withdrew from his delivery chain. When he texted again during work hours, he got a professional response from Mike. When he texted me from another angle, just checking if Mike saw the text, I replied, please ask him directly. He stopped. He had no route around the boundary. This experience taught me something profound. You can't control others' habits, but you can decide what you tolerate. Muting and redirecting wasn't rude, it was essential. It reclaimed my evenings and allowed Mike to manage his own time. It also reinforced something within me, that boundaries aren't barriers, they're bridges back to sanity, clarity, and self-respect. Now when I think about that night in August, I realize how easily our lives were disrupted by a thoughtless habit. Gary could have texted Mike directly all along. With a little less convenience and a little more care, I wouldn't have ended up in his messaging funnel. For us, the result was peace restored, personal and professional. By midweek, the afterburn of Tuesday's boundary stood firm. Gary, once a relentless ping on my phone, had shifted to messaging Mike directly, a small change, but one I capitalized on. I noticed it didn't take much effort to uphold clarity. One composed message followed by silence worked wonders. As HR experts advise, clear policies around texting and defined contact periods help reduce burnout and protect mental health. I realized I'd done more than mute a number, I'd modeled a healthier work culture, one conversation at a time. That Friday evening, Mike walked in after work with a grin and shook his head. No more "Hey sis, can he cover?" texts, he laughed. Relief lit his eyes. He actually messaged me directly for once. I felt that same thrill of victory, real and tangible. In that moment, I understood that boundaries don't just help you, they help everyone. Workload clarity, responsibility, mutual respect, these elements are like tiny dominoes. The first few set everything else into alignment. A week later, I received an unexpected text from HR's internal system, announcing a new company policy. Employees now have the right to disconnect outside scheduled hours. Managers were advised to avoid after-hours contact unless urgent and consult employees' schedules before sending texts. It felt like my actions had contributed to something larger, transforming a culture one boundary at a time. My own manager joined the wave too. She sent a team-wide reminder, no work texts after 6 p.m. unless emergencies, let's keep evenings hours. That message struck me with validation. I realized setting personal limits had ripple effects, touching not only my life but the entire team's well-being. Then came Thursday afternoon. I was at the gym, mid-workout, when my phone buzzed silently. I saw Gary's name and smiled, wondering if the old instinct would resurface. But I'd learned my lesson, I didn't reply. Instead, I waited. About 5 minutes later, Mike texted me, "Moments ago, Gary asked me directly for a weekend cover. All good. I set my phone down, returned to my reps, and felt grounded knowing boundaries can become habits. I shared this small but powerful shift with colleagues. One of them confessed she'd been picking up after her team's manager too, passing information, doing work. She said, "I needed to see your response to feel safe saying no." Others nodded, relief washing over their faces. We collectively agreed, informal roles weren't worth our mental health. Texting protocols started being mumbled in coffee breaks and floated in team chats. By Sunday, I reflected on the journey. It all began with a simple refusal: "I'm not Mike's assistant." That sentence became a turning point, inspiring policy changes and cultural awareness. I realized how easily my help had been weaponized into free labor, and how reclaiming my time upheld my dignity. Labor scholars confirm that employees who assert clear boundaries experience less stress, more control, and greater job satisfaction. Last night, Mike and I compared notes. He'd gotten compliments from colleagues on how professionally he'd handled his own scheduling. He smiled and said, "Thanks, sis. I owe you one." I replied, "Nah, I owe you peace." We laughed, but I meant it. We still work together at the same company, and yes, Gary still exists. But the text messaging dynamic changed. Respect replaced assumption. Boundaries replaced chaos. Phones no longer pinged my evenings with demands I didn't sign up for. I found peace in silent evenings. Mike found a manager he could talk to directly. And our family dinners? Finally uninterrupted. Looking back, it's incredible how one assertive response can spark wider change. My phone is free again. My evenings are mine again. And the workplace feels more respectful. That simple no, spoken calmly, became my signal flare: boundaries matter, habits change, and we're all better for it. After I set that firm boundary with Gary, I expected pushback, or at least another text. Instead, his silence spoke louder than any reply. He texted Mike directly that same evening, asking about Saturday coverage, and we both shrugged in relief. In that small shift, a new pattern emerged: direct communication, respected boundaries. It's a quiet power move, rooted in the principle that consent is essential, not optional. It wasn't a grand rebellion, it was a professional pivot. Over the next few days, I noticed how disconnected messages to my phone stopped draining my energy, allowing me to reclaim time with friends and hobbies. I even brushed off a couple of follow-up pings without guilt. Experts have confirmed that implementing a right to disconnect not only reduces stress and burnout, but also improves job satisfaction and productivity. I could feel that shift in my mood: lighter, calmer, freer. Meanwhile, HR rolled out a pilot right to disconnect guideline, urging managers and employees to respect off-work hours. The policy encouraged asynchronous communication, scheduled emails, and affirmed that you don't have to monitor work messages outside agreed times. Seeing those words in writing felt validating. My boundary had been transformed into an organizational ethos. Even Gary subtly adjusted. A week later, I heard from Mike that Gary apologized for texting me directly. He admitted he'd taken the easy route instead of the correct one. It was awkward but respectful, a step toward accountability. Psychological research warns that boss phubbing, or distracting people with messages at random hours, erodes trust and engagement. Now, that awkward habit was being recalibrated. At the same time, I noticed other colleagues speaking up too. One teammate muttered, "I've been passing tech requests to my partner, not anymore." Another HR rep joked, "You started something big." Suddenly, boundary setting was spreading, piece by piece. SHRM notes it often starts with a single courageous step, then ripples through the team. By the following Monday, my manager sent out a team email reminding everyone, no messaging team members after hours unless it's urgent, and even then, ping during working hours or use email. It was subtle, but firm. That message wasn't just about me, it was about embedding boundaries into workplace culture. Companies with clear disconnect policies enjoy healthier, more engaged teams. That night, Mike and I had dinner at our favorite taco spot. He toasted me with his soda, to boundaries and good sisters. He could laugh, and so could I. For the first time in months, my phone finally let me be. I felt grounded and present, not tethered to someone else's demands. A few days later, I reflected on that pivotal decision. It was just one text, but it ignited a change. My evenings became mine again, my stress fell. Mike stopped shrugging off notifications, Gary stopped misdirecting. We all recalibrated. What started as a personal act became communal change, and it paid dividends. When boundaries are respected, people are more focused, more creative, and more loyal. It wasn't about being difficult, it was about being human. Yes, Gary still works there. But he texts fewer people off hours now. He deleted my number from the group chat. And sometimes, in small ways, he texts me about me, asking how I'm doing. That little acknowledgement shows real growth. Setting that boundary didn't make me mean, it made me reliable, respected, and free. And for me, that makes all the difference. By midsummer, the ripple effect of my boundary setting had taken hold. Gary no longer texted me off hours, and every ping I received during evenings were personal, photos from my best friend's baby shower, or confirmations for my yoga class. The shift was real. As mental health experts highlight, setting a right to disconnect can significantly reduce stress, prevent burnout, and improve overall well-being. I felt that firsthand. My stomach no longer twisted every time my phone buzzed after 6 p.m. Meanwhile, HR's new policy rolled out and echoed the change I'd sparked. Under the new right to disconnect guideline, employees weren't obliged to respond to non-urgent messages outside working hours, and managers were advised to schedule communications during business hours. Seeing the company's endorsement confirmed what I'd done wasn't just about me, it was a cultural shift rooted in empathy and respect. But the most powerful moment came during a monthly all-hands meeting. My manager addressed the room: "Let's respect each other's time. Unless it's urgent, we're not texting off hours." A ripple of applause followed, no grandstanding, just alignment. That small gesture reinforced a shift from individual boundary setting to collective accountability. Gary eventually texted again, but this time it was framed differently. "Sorry about texting sis, Mike. That won't happen again." His apology, though small, signified more than polite correction. It showed he recognized boundaries and adjusted his behavior. This marked a first step toward rebuilding respect and trust in our interactions. Inside my own team, I noticed similar breakthroughs. A coworker confided that she'd been handling her partner's after-hour queries and felt trapped. I told her what worked for me: just say no, and turn notifications off. She confessed it made her evenings quieter within days. Another teammate implemented an auto-reply during vacations: "I won't see messages till Monday." A domino effect, quiet, but real. It reminded me of a Forbes study noting that employees with clear off time are more productive, creative, and maintain higher job satisfaction. As communication loosened, team energy rose. Shallow task-based chat gave way to deeper brainstorming during work hours. We seemed calmer and more connected, not less available. This shift showed that disconnecting doesn't make teams lazy, it makes them stronger. At home, dinners became phone-free. I no longer stumbled through urgent pings under the table. Mike shared that even his manager had started mirroring the new policy, booking blocks on his calendar to prevent after-work texts. He laughed: "It's like you rescued me from my phone." I grinned back, knowing there was truth in that. Later, I found myself rereading our conversation, simply: "I'm not his secretary." It hadn't been rude, it had been necessary. And it changed everything. Raw research confirms that one brave stand against overreach can spark culture change, and the best part? Sustainable respect follows. On a crisp Friday evening, I walked home with a suitcase after gym class when my phone pinged. A direct text from Mike, saying, "Hey sis, thanks for holding that line." My shoulders relaxed. I replied, "Always." Because it wasn't just about an annoying manager, it was about reclaiming dignity, reinforcing boundaries, and restoring balance. And doing so reminded me that sometimes, to shape the workplace you need, you only have to answer one question: is this mine to carry? By late summer, the change I sparked had taken on a life of its own. After that single assertive text to Gary and muting his number, I noticed a calm settle around me. Evening phone notifications, once a source of dread, now came from friends or family, not work. That quiet was both subtle and powerful. Mental health experts affirm that enforcing a right to disconnect helps reduce stress, prevent burnout, and improve overall well-being, and I felt every bit of that relief. At the same time, our company rolled out a formal right to disconnect policy. Communications after hours were paused unless urgent, and only with explicit consent. Seeing those words in our employee handbook confirmed that my boundary wasn't just personal, it had become institutionalized. My manager reinforced it too, reminding everyone in a team meeting: respect each other's downtime. Only urgent contact after hours. That validation, from top to bottom, fortified the change. Then came the most transformative moment. One afternoon, I received a rare text from Gary, but this time it read: "Hi, my name, apologies for texting you about Mike before. I'll reach out directly to him going forward." It was awkward, but it was growth. He acknowledged boundaries and corrected course. Behavioral studies show that when leaders model acceptable behavior, even imperfectly, it fosters trust and respect across teams. Quietly, the dynamic at work began to shift. Coworkers started mirroring my approach, and so did their replies. One colleague told me she stopped covering for her boss's after-hours texts, and her reply was met with relief and respect. Another said an auto-reply during vacations, "On leave, will respond Monday." These domino effects mattered. According to Forbes, early boundary applications often spark cultural transformation. What seemed like protocol became practice. Meanwhile, productivity soared. A global study reported that organizations with strong disconnect policies report higher employee engagement, creativity, and retention. I saw it in everyday work. Team brainstorming sessions felt sharper, emails during work hours became more thoughtful, and stress visibly dropped in our Slack threads. Even at home, the impact was palpable. Dinner no longer obsessed by buzzing phones. So what? No emergency texts amid family conversation. Mike said he'd noticed a shift too. His manager texted him directly and only during work hours. He laughed, saying, "Sis, you rescued us both." I replied, "We rescued ourselves." One crisp Friday evening, I walked home under golden light after yoga, and my phone buzzed. I saw Mike's name and smiled. His text read, "Thanks again for that boundary. I can breathe now." I realized how far we'd come, from one short message to a culture that honors balance. In weeks, I'd moved from annoyance to action, and from action to influencing an entire office culture. What began as me saying "I'm not Mike's secretary" became a message others felt safe saying too. That ripple brought calm, not overload. And now, each evening, my phone rests quietly beside my bed. Because saying no to one misdirected text helped us reclaim time, clarity, and respect, both at work and at home. By autumn's arrival, the atmosphere at work had shifted quietly yet noticeably. My evenings remained peaceful, untethered by after-hours pings. Instead, messages came from old friends or family, not Gary or rules from other people's agendas. That quiet meant something profound. I had reclaimed my time and sanity. Studies confirm that respecting a right to disconnect significantly reduces stress, prevents burnout, and strengthens overall well-being. HR's newly implemented policy echoed the shift, mandating that management communicate only within agreed hours. Non-urgent matters could wait. My manager reinforced this in team updates: no messages after 6 p.m. unless truly urgent. Seeing our personal stand morph into organizational policy felt validating. It was evidence that individual action can seed systemic transformation. The most revealing moment came from Gary himself. One morning, he texted me, not about Mike, but checking how I was doing. It read, "Hey, hope you're well. Sorry about hijacking your number before." That simple acknowledgement spoke volumes. Behavioral science shows that even subtle signs of accountability from leaders build trust-enhancing workplace culture. Gary had not only respected my boundary but also grown from it. A ripple effect had begun. Colleagues started modeling similar habits. One blocked after-hours threads, another added auto-responses like "on holiday, won't respond till Monday." Gradually, the culture of always on ebbed. Research shows that when a critical mass of employees, about 50%, engages in boundary habits, it prompts a positive shift in organizational norms. At home, dinner was finally phone-free. Mike mentioned he'd noticed the change too. "No more weird texts at midnight, sis. My phone's calm." He smiled, and I realized our personal boundary rippled into his well-being as much as mine. Then came the all-hands meeting. My manager summarized, "We've implemented the right to disconnect policy starting this month." She paused, then added, "I believe it's helping our energy and focus, and reducing stress." A round of quiet nods followed. Later, a senior HR leader shared data showing rising team productivity and fewer errors since the policy's launch, proof that disconnecting didn't hurt work, it helped. I reflected on the journey: one assertive text, one mute button, one gentle refusal. These brought peace not only to me, but to Mike, Gary, and the entire team. The Guardian notes that right to disconnect laws in countries like Australia and France pave the way for improved work-life clarity, job satisfaction, and even fewer health issues. Our company culture echoed the global trend: boundaries aren't selfish, they're restorative. One crisp evening, Mike texted, "Bro, I owe you, big time." I replied, "No debt. Just boundaries." Because that simple boundary didn't just protect time, it anchored sanity, respect, and trust. Now, when my phone buzzes after 6 p.m., I smile, knowing it's likely personal, not professional. And I remind myself, setting effective boundaries doesn't shut people out. It invites them to respect you, and makes all of our lives better. Story 7. We hiked deep into the woods and found a deer that wasn't a deer. We were both 17 and full of restless teenage bravado when my friend and I decided at 9 p.m. to venture far off the trail into the woods. The trees swallowed the moonlight, and every rustle of leaves sounded like footsteps behind us. That's when we found it, a derelict wooden shack, draped in animal hides, the fire pit glowing faintly warm as if someone had only just left. My heart hammered. Then I saw the deer skull nailed high in a tree, the empty eye socket staring at us. My voice betrayed me when I whispered, "We need to leave, now." We spun around, and that's when I noticed another deer, standing motionless, closer than we expected. As I focused, dread flooded me. Its head had no skin, just raw bone and dark hollows. I tapped my friend's shoulder and pointed. His face went pale enough to bleed. Before we could process it, the creature, unnatural, horrifying, rose onto its hind legs. It opened its mouth in a deep, guttural growl that shattered everything. "What the fuck?" he screamed. So did I, and then it vanished into the pitch-black forest. We ran. We ran through brambles and obstacles until we burst out of the woods and into the cold truth of night. It was already past 11 p.m. when we reached his car, only to find the windows and paint shredded, as if claws had sliced through steel. Our legs quivered. Then came that scream. It erupted behind us, a sound like no animal voice, a clattering, inhuman shriek that froze our souls. We dove into the car, slamming the doors. We watched as it emerged onto the road, crouched in the beams of the headlights. It stood up, tall and unnatural, stalking us on its hind legs. But when we looked closely, it had hands and feet, not hooves. 2 feet from us, it froze. Then it just stood there, watching. We drove off without looking back. We barely processed what had happened in the woods before fear took the wheel. After smashing into the car, I looked back, and that thing loomed in the headlights, skeletal deer head, human hands, standing on its hind legs, shrieking its inhuman scream. It held its position on the empty road, staring at us for a heartbeat that shattered a lifetime. We floored it and didn't stop driving until the woods were just trees behind us. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the vision. We reached out online to see if anyone else had seen something similar. That's how we stumbled into the legends of the Beast of Bray Road, a towering wolf-shaped creature caught scratching at cars, standing upright, even chasing vehicles in Wisconsin. Witnesses described it as 6 to 7 feet tall, dog-headed, but with human-like arms and hands. It growled, drug its prey, sound eerily like what we saw. Those sightings echoed our own: animal skins hanging in a shack, a deer skull nailed to trees, fire pits, even scratched up cars. Reports from 1989 and 1992 tell of it crouching by roadsides, eyeing cars, and jumping onto them, just like ours, though ours never got the chance. One local recounted its stench, the odor of rotting meat, bone deep, something I'd sensed that night, that metallic decay in the air. Then there's the Wendigo folklore. This creature, cannibalistic, deer-like, often emaciated or wearing animal skulls, was said to stalk the forests of Canada and the northern United States. One Redditor wrote an image of a humanoid wearing a deer skull, antlers atop, whispering from behind trees. That visceral image hit me. It resembled the skull we hung on our wall, and that deer-headed creature we saw. Another internet story popped up. In Tennessee, someone claimed they saw a not deer, tall, clawed, antlered, bipedal, that emitted a cry of pain yet didn't attack. That was us, 2 scared teens, alive with adrenaline, unable to ignore that it hadn't attacked but stared until we drove off. Still, skeptics noted the beast might be a misidentified wolf or feral dog, but none of those stand upright at 7 feet, scratch cars with human-like hands, or howl like something from hell. Plus, our experience matched the recurring themes: roadside stances, skeletal heads, unnatural vocalizations. We never found definitive proof, no bones to test, no camera footage. But the forest shack, the deer skull, the fire pit's warmth, it wasn't coincidence. It was a ritual site. We saw something unnatural, something intentional. And now every time I close my eyes at night, I hear that scream, a guttural, human-like howl shouting our names. That scream joined the chorus of testimonies: Doris Gibson on Bray Road, whose car got hit and who claimed the beast leapt onto her trunk. Mark Shackleman, who first encountered a bipedal, canine human creature in 1936. We don't know what it was. A cryptid, a demon, a haunted Wendigo, but whatever it is, it wants to be seen. Whether trapped in legend or hiding in the dark, that night taught us a brutal truth: some woods aren't meant for humans. We walked away with shaken souls and a question burning in us: are we safer by never returning, or are we safer by knowing its name? A few nights after our terrifying encounter, I couldn't sleep. The forest still loomed in my mind, those skeletal antlers, that chilling scream echoing in the cabin of my skull. My friend and I pored over late-night forums and cryptid databases, trying to anchor our fear in something real. We found references to the Beast of Bray Road, a creature spotted repeatedly in rural Wisconsin since 1936. Witnesses described it as upright, 6 to 7 feet tall, walking on hind legs, carrying roadkill, scratching at cars, and roaring like a wild animal-human hybrid. The overlap was eerie, a skull or antlered head, glowing eyes, scratching metal, standing on 2 legs. Then we uncovered tales of the Wendigo, a terrifying forest spirit from Algonquian folklore. It's described as emaciated, deer-like, with skull-like heads, antlers, horrible stench, and a penchant for stalking the living. Note: traditional Wendigo lore doesn't mention antlers or skull heads. That's a modern twist found in horror fiction and movies. But that's what we saw: deer skull, no flesh, standing upright. A witness in Alabama described a zombie deer standing on 2 legs, ribs visible beneath skinless flesh, antlers perched on a bare skull, moving like crutches. A Tennessee sighting reported a pale, antlered deer skull creature moving oddly, freezing in headlights. These reports matched our experience eerily: colorless skull, twisted gait, painful cry. Still, skeptics argued these creatures were misidentified bears with mange or wolves. None stand upright, scratch cars, or carry on like that. Local pranksters in Wisconsin did admit dressing up as werewolves around Bray Road. But their costumes looked nothing like ours: no skull heads, no blood-curdling screams. The raw horror we felt was too real. We realized we weren't imagining it. We hadn't stumbled into a camp prank. We may have encountered something deeply unnatural, whether cryptid, folklore beast, or spiritual walker we couldn't label. It stared. It cried. It stood just outside human form. Now nights feel longer. Every rustle near my window rattles me. I can't shake the dread that it saw us again, followed us, marked us somehow. My friend installed motion-activated cameras near the wood's edge. I downloaded apps to map animal behavior. We're trying anything to figure out whether we saw a myth, a monster, or something even more primal. If you ever find yourself with that same ghostly scream behind you, that same deer skull eye shine in your headlights, there's only one rule: don't turn around. Don't run carelessly. Document it. Mark the time. Record the sound. Report it. Wildlife officials might dismiss you, but cryptid researchers might listen. Because whatever it was, Bram Road beast, Wendigo, not deer, it left a footprint in our lives. And it waits in the dark. We did the first thing many horror stories warn: we ran. But we didn't leave our questions behind. And if it returns, we'll be ready. We realized quickly that running away that night was only the first step. In the days that followed, my friend and I were consumed by one question: how do we capture the truth of what we saw, without falling apart ourselves? So at dawn, we returned, together, cautious, armed with gloves, notebooks, flashlights, and our phones. We cordoned off a small perimeter around the shack and fire pit, treated it like a crime scene. Every detail mattered: the angle of the boards, the depth of footprints, the position of the deer skull nailed to a tree. We recorded GPS coordinates, sketched a rough map, and took close-up photos that captured textures: brittle wood, scorched stones, bone against bark. That night we set up dome trail cameras and audio recorders. We positioned them at knee height to simulate a person walking by and angled them toward trails visible from the shack. We added measuring sticks to anchor size in our videos. By carrying extra batteries, setting our phones to airplane mode, and marking paths with glow sticks, we tried to ensure nothing escaped our attention. Every weekend became a ritual. We'd pack backpacks, red light headlamps to protect night vision, blaze orange jackets to stay legal around hunters, first aid kits just in case. We posted camera footage to an online cryptid research forum and received surprisingly supportive responses. File numbers and timelines were logged, locations discreetly noted. They encouraged us not to wait years. Timely documentation, they said, is gold. And it felt good to take action. Still, our mental health took a toll. We experienced shaky sleep, startled awakenings, and restless minds racing with dread. So we formed accomplice agreements: a rule to comfort each other at night, a chat thread for expressing anxiety, and weekly breaks where we avoided talking about the woods. Experts warn of cryptid encounter syndrome, marked by heightened fear, disrupted sleep, and hypervigilance, so we treated it seriously. We shared notes, watched movies until midnight, or just went hiking on well-trafficked trails to remind ourselves the world is also ordinary. School nights stayed normal. I cooked dinner, he studied for tests, and the woods were a memory, not an obsession. We balanced fear with routine, action with rest. That discipline softened the anxiety edge. We also prepped for what could come next. Daily checks on battery life, camera angle tests, marker tape to flag fresh footprints. We contacted a local wildlife biologist, only to learn that no known animal matches a bipedal, clawed, skull-headed creature. It didn't rule out cryptids or pranks, but it confirmed this wasn't usual wildlife. The ritual gave us purpose and solidarity. We realized documentation has value even without immediate proof. It validates our experience and respects our fear. At the same time, self-care kept us grounded. We weren't fools chasing shadows, we were cautious investigators. If someone else stumbles on something similar, here's what helped us most. Never go alone, take basic field gear, record every detail, anchor things in time and place, stay emotionally supported, and consult experts. It's okay to chase answers, but not at the expense of your sanity. Now, nights feel quieter. Cameras have not captured more, yet. But the tools are in place. If that creature returns, we'll be ready. And if not, we'll still know we did everything we could to understand the impossible. In the weeks since we set up cameras and walked through our makeshift crime scene, something unexpected happened. I began to feel a shift inside me. The terror I carried the night we fled never fully disappeared, but it softened. Instead of checking my phone at midnight, heart pounding, I'd drift off peacefully. I owe that change to two things: taking steps forward, and stepping back from the fear. My friend and I learned how vital it is to recognize what experts refer to as cryptid encounter syndrome, night sweats, jolts awake, hypervigilance around every shadow. By talking openly, keeping a shared chat log of fears and dreams, and affirming small progress, we rebuilt a sense of normalcy. Long walks, laughter over snap trail cam squirrels, and working through fear together grounded us more effectively than pretending nothing happened. That foundation taught me something else. Sometimes, the best way to heal is setting clear boundaries, just like at work. I'd seen how the right to disconnect restores sanity when messaging oversteps into private life. Similarly, I stopped revisiting the audio recordings before bed. I silenced cameras in the early hours. Just as strict no work after 6 policies protect well-being, we protected ourselves by regulating our investigation. We stopped obsessing, so the woods stopped owning us. We also realized the importance of mental health support. We reached out to school counselors and trusted adults, not for therapy charts, but for mentorship. Their calm reminders, "You are safe now," mattered when reason lost its grip. We discovered that sharing the load, whether anxiety or research, softened the weight on each of us. Every Sunday we'd gather, swap updates, battery levels, camera angles, errant twigs that hadn't been there. For much of the week, nothing happened. And that silence, once bone-chilling, felt like a balm. In work terms, it was like embracing downtime, no messages, no threats, just being present in life again. I started sleeping through the night. But the investigation continues. We've accepted it might never end. That's okay. Life isn't about having definite answers, it's about learning how to carry uncertainty with dignity. We've grown stronger, more aware, and more resilient. And like an employee who steadily uses disconnect policies to prevent burnout and reclaim engagement, we're using boundaries to preserve curiosity without losing ourselves. At night, when the wind rattles the window and I feel that familiar pulse of fear, I breathe deeply and whisper, "We did what we could." And that's enough. I stand firm in knowing more evidence may come, or not, but it no longer controls me. If you're out there now, spooked by something unseen, remember this: documenting and caring for your mind can coexist. You don't have to sacrifice your well-being in search of truth. You don't have to keep cameras rolling. You deserve to switch off, recharge, and wake up truly alive. We still walk the trail at dawn now and then, but lighter. The shack is just wood. The skull is just bone. Even the footprint, when the morning dew washes it out, feels distant as a dream. And I've finally found that peace is not in denying the fear, it's in choosing what we let define us. After months of trepidation and equipment checks, something unexpected happened. The terror began to fade. The forest still whispered to us in dreams, but by turning our attention toward normal life, school, friends, afternoons at the rink, the grip of the woods loosened. We didn't abandon our investigation, but we set new rules: no record reviews at night, no audio tests before bed, and absolutely no cameras running through the wee hours. It reminded me of how I once treated my job, responding to every ping until I realized that granting myself permission to unplug was the only way to protect my sanity. There was power in returning agency over our experience. My friend and I started keeping a simple fear log on our phones, where we'd timestamp moments when a noise or shadow spiked our pulse or breathing. We shared the entries and laughed in relief when we forgot to write one for a full week. We reached out to a school counselor, not because we'd lose our minds, but because we recognized the weight these events carried, and wanted a safe space to talk them through. That space, that validation, was more gravity than any evidence we sought. We learned to frame our experience not as pure horror, but as something supernatural and ordinary all at once, and suddenly it had less power to scare us into silence. Our dedication evolved into a quiet balance between curiosity and caution. On weekday evenings, we returned to tutoring or soccer practice. On weekends, we checked cameras once, loaded batteries, but then left the woods behind until sunrise. In these choices, it felt like we were saying, yes, we were there. Yes, we'll be ready if it comes back. But no, we're not lost to fear. The creak of the living room door didn't make our hearts pound anymore. We built routines strong enough that nothing could shift them. That chaos became background noise to our resolve. Through it all, I thought often about workplace boundaries. Just as right to disconnect isn't about ignoring your responsibilities, our choices weren't about denying what happened. It was about deciding, together, when and how we'd engage. We limited resets, prioritized rest, and recognized that recovery isn't forgetting, it's choosing how to live onward. And no matter what footage or footprints we found next, we knew not to collapse into panic or obsession. When camera batteries first died on their own late one night, I didn't jump to restart them. Instead, I sat in silence. It was the same silence we used to fear. That night, nothing followed us home. It wasn't a victory, it was a milestone. A few evenings ago, I walked by the shack once more, just walked past it, not peering in. No gloves, no torchlight, nothing but our shared glance and unspoken promise. We're here, we understand, and we're not afraid to say enough. Because matter or myth, the piece we've carved back into our lives matters more. We built it carefully: family dinners, pizza nights, camera-free zones, school projects, counselor check-ins. And that piece fuels us more than any footage could. If you ever find yourself peering into the unknown, remember this: there's bravery in choosing peace. The truth is worth seeking. But not at the expense of your nights or yours heads. We stepped out of fear, and didn't bite back. As autumn arrived, the fog of fear that had once clung to my mind lifted gently, though not entirely. The forest remained a silent reminder of that night, the deer skull, the shack, the creature that stood on its hind legs, but I was learning to live beyond it. My friend and I continued our cautious surveillance on weekends, but only until dusk. No thrills, no obsessive checks. We reintroduced normal rhythms: soccer practices, study sessions, hanging out with friends. There was a conscious choice to distance ourselves from the woods when daylight faded, and that small act of prioritizing sleep over secrecy became a turning point in reclaiming our presence. Sleep became normal again. I'd wake without panic pounding through my chest or jolting awake from imagined growls. We sometimes joked about how far we'd come from trembling in the car to sleeping without cameras by the door. What shifted wasn't simply the absence of fear, but gaining permission to rest, with boundaries intact. It reminded me of the right to disconnect I'd read about in other contexts, that concept of switching off after work to preserve mental health and focus. Just like an office environment where people disengage from pings and emails after hours, we were learning to switch off our fear. A few parents and counselors helped too, not to treat us, but to affirm we were safe now. We were encouraged to take breaks from the investigation. That permission, especially from adults, helped us unwind without shame. I saw how important it was to rebalance after trauma, whether cryptid-related or work-related. Structured wind-down routines, like not checking our notes before bed, mirrored beneficial workplace rules about not reading emails after shift, focused disconnection rather than denial. I reflected often on our journey. We didn't chase ghosts to entertainment's sake. We chased understanding to refine stability. And we did it together. Without that shared trust, I wouldn't have walked past the shack lit by sunrise and not stumbled backward into panic. Instead, I paused, acknowledged the space, and walked away without looking back. That quiet moment, alone in the woods with my breath and resolve, felt like reclaiming everything I'd lost when I ran. It was the power of intentional disengagement, choosing peace. Now, nights are calmer. I can't guarantee joy every dusk, but I can guarantee serenity. I've traded terror for mindful curiosity. If our cameras never catch another sign, that's okay. We were wise enough to choose recovery over obsession. And if the creature ever returns, we'll be respectful, prepared, and steady, no longer fleeing, but facing calmly together. As I sit in my room tonight, phone silent, curtains drawn, I understand that fear need not steer our lives. Boundaries can be drawn around horror, just as they can around work. Like good right to disconnect cultures that value mental space to boost focus and satisfaction, my own policy, silence after sunset, space between curiosity and obsession, became the anchor of my well-being. The woods may hide its secrets a little while longer, and that's not mine to solve. Because I found something more valuable, the freedom to sleep, to live, and to carry the memory without being carried by it. And in balancing that tension, between knowing and letting go, I finally feel whole again. Story 8, a hidden letter from my late mother reignited hope in a public library. This feels unreal, like a script lifted from a movie, yet every word is true. 3 years ago, my mother lost her battle with cancer. She wasn't just my parent, she was my closest friend, the one I shared everything with. Our weekends revolved around books and iced tea, wandering our local library's aisles, battling each other to claim the latest releases first. Those days built our bond, laughter echoing off shelves, whispered debates over book covers, and promises that one day we'd open a cafe together, books lining the walls, tea steaming in gentle light. Last weekend, a heavy cloud of loneliness settled over me. I was restless and uneasy, so I did something spontaneous. I drove to our old library. That place had been my sanctuary, and hers, until the day her funeral darkened the world. The automatic doors quieted behind me, and I recognized that smell of polished wood and musty paper. My heart bounced between relief and dread. I walked the familiar aisles, fingertips brushing spine after spine until I stopped somewhere near the fiction section. I pulled down a random book that I wouldn't normally pick, found a seat under a lamp, and began flipping through it. The atmosphere felt like walking into a memory. Halfway through a page, something slid out and fluttered at my feet. I froze. It was folded floral stationery, her handwriting, unmistakably hers. It read, "To whoever finds this. I hope this book finds you at the right time. I hope you feel less alone today. I hope you know someone out there believes you're stronger than you think. And if it's my daughter reading this. Hi, sweetheart. I love you more than all the words in all the books in the world. Keep going. You're doing better than you know. Mom." My vision blurred. Every breath felt sharp. That phrase, "more than all the words in all the books," was hers. I'd heard it countless times in her voice when I was young, sitting in her lap as we argued over who had to return the book first. My hands shook as I opened and closed the stationery, desperately hoping it was real. The world felt too quiet. When I looked up, a librarian was before me, concern etched on her face as she asked quietly if I was okay. I handed her the note, voice trembling, and asked where the book had come from. She said it had been checked out once, in 2020, and never returned until that morning. The book had sat idle on their shelves since the year my mom died. That exact year. I stepped outside into the fresh air, tears streaming without shame. I couldn't breathe. I thought perhaps it was fate, or sheer happenstance, but my heart whispered that she'd left it there for me. Something in the universe had arranged it, ensuring I'd find her words when I needed them most. I wandered home, my grief heavier yet strangely lighter. That night, I held the note like a lifeline. I didn't know whether Mom planned it, at least I knew she was still talking to me, even if it was from beyond this life. The next day, I shared the story with friends and family. They were moved, not just by the message, but by the idea that love can transcend death and time. A close friend told me some find letters left in library books, strangers reaching out to strangers, with poignant words at just the right moment. One instance involved a mother's message tucked into the Fellowship of the Ring, urging her son to keep his eyes open for wonder. Another involved a daughter discovering a mother's note halfway across the globe, reminding readers of the quiet connections life gives us. I thought then of Susan Orlean's nonfiction The Library Book, which reminds us that libraries are more than repositories, they're repositories of life experiences, memories, and human fragments. That morning I became part of that tapestry. The forgotten book and its hidden note had become my touchstone for healing. In the days that followed, I changed my routine. I returned to the library, this time purposefully. I wrote a small thank you note and slipped it into another random book. It read, "To whoever finds this, you are not alone. You are loved. Another soul believes in you." It was a tiny act, one of many that might never be discovered, but it felt necessary. I became part of a chain of empathy, connecting strangers in small ways. I didn't expect answers, just believed someone, somewhere, might need a moment of comfort. At home, I began to rebuild my life around memory. I sorted her books, kept the ones she'd loved most on my nightstand. I began journaling in a floral-paged notebook my mom had once used. Sometimes my hand would slip into writing something in her voice. Keep going, sweetheart. It felt like her warmth again. I also made time to understand the weight of loss. A grief counselor showed me that finding moments of connection, even after death, can transform sorrow into resilience. Each sunrise became open to possibility, each page I turned infused with her presence. And those library nights? They became rituals of hope. On one visit, I found no note hidden among pages, but I did feel her there, in the rustle of paper, in the fading scent of ink, in the hush between shelves. I realized she'd never fully left. She was living in those words, in me, and in every heart open to her message. Sometimes I wonder, did she write that note knowing I'd find it someday? Or did she do it for someone else, trusting the universe to connect the dots? I don't have the answer, and I've learned that's okay. Because the real gift was the reminder that we leave pieces of ourselves behind, in books, in hearts, in quiet acts of kindness. Now, every time I pick a random book off a shelf, there's a trace of possibility, a reminder that we can reach each other, even across time and space. In that, I found a new way to honor her memory, not just by remembering, but by passing something forward. Because words matter. And so do the hearts that leave them, and the hands that finally find them. When I woke the morning after slipping the note into that second book, I felt lighter yet strangely full, like a glass gently filling after being cracked and emptied. The act of writing and giving gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't had since my mom died. I realized I'd formed an unspoken bond with whoever might find it one day, just as she had with me. That quiet thought brought a peaceful smile. Days passed and nothing changed outwardly, but inside, something shifted. I found myself revisiting our calorie-growing stack of her favorite novels more often. I handled each as if I could absorb her voice anew. I pored over passages where she'd once written dedications and margin thoughts. In those gently scrawled notes, I discovered not just her memory but her playful spirit. Where she'd scribbled a note like, "Oops, I dog-eared this for you," I paused, imagining her voice in my head, teasing me, making me laugh through tears. It reminded me that she'd never really left these pages. One steamy afternoon, I returned to the library on a whim, curious if I'd sense a response, or at least feel the same tingle I'd felt when I found her note. As the sliding doors parted, the hush felt warmer this time, like a shared secret. I meandered straight to that section where I'd left my note. The book was still there, untouched, but I noticed something else, a faint bookmark sticking a few chapters in, its edge peeking out. My breath caught. I handled it carefully. It was a simple pressed flower, maybe a violet or forget-me-not. My pulse thundered. No handwriting, but that same floral stationery paper. My heart pounded as I placed it back, imagining another hand had found my words and replied in kind, taken a moment to add something personal. I left the library in awe, not yet understanding, but trusting the feeling. It was like a conversation across time. She left a note for me, I left one for someone else, and someone, maybe someone like me, had responded. The sequence felt sacred. It wasn't about identification or ownership, it was about emotional resonance, connection without obligation, empathy without names. That evening, I began collecting more stationery in shades of teal and lavender. I wrote new messages, short, kind, hopeful, addressed to unknown recipients. If you're feeling lost today, you're not alone. Someone believes in you. I left these folded into random books near the edge of the fiction shelves, close enough to reach but hidden just enough to be a discovery. Each time I did it, I felt like part of something bigger than grief. At home, I set aside downtime to read and write. I found a soft rhythm in journaling again, often choosing to begin with "Dear Mom," and finishing with "Thank you for the words." I constructed small rituals, lighting a candle where her favorite mug sits, reading for 20 minutes each night, and then scribbling 3 positive thoughts. It was a manageable tribute, anchored in daily acts rather than grand gestures. If someone ever asked, I'd tell them this story isn't about proof or perfect timing, it's about noticing gentle nudges in life and honoring them. It's about the way grief and hope can intertwine so beautifully that even the faintest gestures, like a note in a library, can feel transformative. I haven't found out who left that pressed flower. I may never know. But I carry it now. I pressed it in one of my notebooks, between 2 pages, just beneath another tiny bloom my mom tucked into a copy of Little Women. The layers of memories are tangible there, the petals, the paper, the pages, they're complicit in this quiet legacy of love. And I sense that as long as there are hearts ready to give and receive these messages, the library will remain not just a building of books, but a living tapestry of witness and care. And so I continue, to read, to write, to leave words where they might matter. Because by doing this, I feel stitches of connection closing over my grief, weaving a fabric of hope threaded by voices known and unknown, held together by the belief that even when someone is gone, love can still write its way home. As winter slipped into spring, the small ripple of connection we'd started in that quiet library grew into something stronger than I ever expected. My mother's note felt like a healing spark, but the response, the pressed flower, became a whisper of shared humanity. It inspired me to continue leaving folded pages of reassurance inside other books. I wrote simple phrases like "You matter" and "You are not alone," slipping them between covers in fiction, biography, romance, books as varied as the people who might find them. I left them intentionally without fanfare, believing that if one leaf could shift someone else's breath, we'd created something lasting. These acts shifted more than just the words. My heart changed. According to mental health experts, writing kindness letters to strangers releases what they call a helper's high, a gentle blend of serotonin and oxytocin that lifts mood, reduces anxiety, and builds resilience. It's different from gratitude journals or therapy sessions. It's intimate, vulnerable, and anonymous. It felt like whispering encouragement into the dark, trusting it would land where it was needed most. At first, I wondered if it mattered. Would anyone even notice a random page in a book? Would my fragile hope vanish without witness? But then I began to notice something remarkable, the way I felt when I tucked each note into place, lighter, hopeful, steady. It reminded me of the way my mother looked after me when I was small, her gentle reassurance that everything would be okay. That signature advantage of kindness, whether you send it or receive it, is its multiplier effect. When people experience empathy without expectation, they tend to pay it forward. One afternoon, I found myself lingering in the poetry section, feeling hesitant. But I thought, if a stranger is aching today, maybe they need an unexpected kindness. So I wrote another note, "You are stronger than you know." I folded it carefully, slid it between pages, and tucked the book back in place. I didn't watch or wait, but inside, I felt less alone. Back at home, I found solace in slowing things down. I dedicated a corner of my desk to a small floral notebook and pen, my mailbox to the unknown reader. I wrote letters to no one and everyone, without name or return. Letters became part of my nightly ritual. I found healing in expressive writing, something therapists call a powerful tool for processing emotion. The act of crafting unseen words, tracing my own grief and hope, fed my sense of peace. School life shifted too. I became more attentive, kinder. My friends asked if something changed. I shrugged and said, just giving a little more, hoping a little more. And in that give and take, I felt connected, rooted, in a kindness practice that wove me into stories I'd never hear back. Sometimes I caught myself in the library, standing still by a shelf of newly returned books, scanning for signs, a folded petal between pages, the edge of a note leaning out. I didn't always find anything, but just being present there felt like coming home. I saw how the library, a place built on shared words, also houses shared hearts. One afternoon, as I tucked a note into The Great Gatsby, I felt a clear shift. No longer did I write from a place of yearning, I wrote from a place of hope. I believed the act mattered, even when silent. I believed in the power of words, of memory, of being seen across aisles of strangers. And in that moment, I felt my mother's presence stronger than ever, not in grief, but in generative connection that reaches beyond me. The heart of this story isn't the note or the flower, it's the way small acts ripple outward, spanning loss and loneliness to build something larger. Through words left unfound and letters returned, in kind heartbeats across space, grief becomes a vessel for kindness. And that kindness, even when anonymous, can anchor us when we drift. So I continue. A floral note here. A folded page there. I leave words behind, trusting they find their way forward. Because sometimes healing isn't about finding answers. It's about trusting in connection, and knowing that even when someone is gone, love can still kindle hope in every unexpected corner. By late summer, the practice of leaving gentle notes had become part of my heartbeat. It wasn't about finding answers anymore, it was about cultivating connection, even in silence. Afternoons often found me in the sunlit corner of the library, notebook open, pen poised, ready to craft words I'd never see acknowledged beyond the turning of a page. A simple sentiment: you are seen. You are loved. I chose spots where chances of discovery felt just right, books about new beginnings or heartbreak, biographies or well-loved fiction. After slipping the note inside, I would pause, close the book with care, and walk away, trusting that the unseen reader would encounter it when the time was right. That summer, I also started helping out in the library's little writing circle. It met every Thursday evening over tea and cookies. Joining felt like opening a door. I was stepping back into community, forging connections that didn't require gritting through sorrow alone. We read aloud, shared lines, tapped into slow companionship we all needed. In one session, My turn came with a short piece inspired by what I'd experienced, how loss can ripple outward, cleansing hearts even when the memory hurts. The group's quiet applause felt like a validation that my story, fragmented and tender, had potency beyond pain. At night, I continued journaling. My grief bore new textures, gratitude entwined with memory, tenderness layered onto loss. I recorded little moments, how the dogwood tree outside my house caught morning light, how a neighbor smiled when I held her door, the relief of finding my note nestled safely inside a different book. Each entry became a stitch in a tapestry I was learning to weave, one that made me steadier instead of hollow. I began understanding that healing isn't linear. Some days I felt okay, even joyful. Others, grief caught me like a tide. But each sunrise and each returned note, discovered or not, anchored me. School returned, and with it, normalcy. I kept scribbling kind words in spare moments, library prep, lunch breaks, between classes. A friend confessed she found one note, "You are stronger than you think." She said it felt like someone understood, and she cried then, quietly, because she had needed to hear it. She didn't know it was me, but I realized that's okay. It didn't matter who wrote it, only that it was found when needed. I felt a surge of purpose that cut through grief's shadow. That act of kindness, unseen but felt, became my tether to everyday life. In our shared writing circle, one of the members, an older woman, told a story of her daughter, a soldier overseas, who'd slipped hidden notes into care packages. She praised the power of words carried forward in secret. I looked at her and felt understood. We were all weaving these invisible threads, hope, memory, courage, all passed from hand to hand, heart to heart. By end of summer, I realized my sorrow had evolved. It was still there, but no longer the only voice in my mind. I had gentleness creeping back into conversation, color returning to otherwise grayscale days. And the unknown reader? Whoever received the notes, they were part of this too. Inclusion without identity, kindness without acknowledgement. That's what I discovered lies in the space grief leaves behind, a chance to build new meaning. I understood what the library truly stands for. It's more than books. It's a living testament to stories we write, stories we leave, stories that continue even when we walk away. And having walked through loss, I'd found a way to keep loving, keep caring, keep creating little moments of light in unexpected places. Fall arrived with crisp mornings and rustling leaves, and with it, a clarity I hadn't anticipated. The grief that once threatened to consume me now felt like a presence I could hold gently, like a hand in mine, reminding me, not controlling me. I still left notes in books, and though the number dwindled, each slipped message felt more like an offering than an obligation. My life had room for reading, for slowly sipping tea, for evenings with the writing circle and quiet walks beneath the amber canopy of trees. A few Saturdays, I visited the library with the simple intention to read. The center of the fiction section, where I'd first discovered my mother's note, held a special place in my mind. I would sit under the same lamp, open a random book, and feel her absence softened by possibility. Sometimes I left no note at all, instead letting silence be enough. Whatever the page contained, that shared hush was a comfort. At school, I became the unofficial listener among friends, someone they trusted with hopes and fears. My own journey through grief and gentle rebuilding gave me empathy I didn't realize I'd earned. If someone was struggling, I tucked an encouraging word into their locker or slipped a note into their notebook. It felt natural now, not selfless or heavy but light, generous. I gave because I understood how much kindness could matter, seen or unseen. Late autumn nights found me curled up in my room, writing letters with a floral pen and my mother's stationery, addressing them not to any specific reader but floating an invitation. May this find you in a moment of change, and may you know there is light ahead. Afterwards, I'd pause for a moment, imagining a stranger smiling as they discovered the unexpected kindness. Sometimes, I'd read a few lines aloud, hearing my own voice tremble, not from heartbreak, but from knowing I was continuing a story that began with love 3 years ago. Looking back, I saw how the story had transformed me. I learned that grief can be the beginning of compassion and creation. That the pain of loss can make room for purpose. That a single note in a book, folded with hope, can initiate ripples none of us fully trace but all of us benefit from. I felt connected, not to an end, but to an unfolding journey no longer marked by consuming absence, but enlivened by acts of quiet care. One late November day, I found myself in the writing circle again. My piece was about connection, how we can touch others through the delicate thread of thought and intention, even when miles or memory separate us. I read it in a voice steady with emotion, and when I finished, the room, usually filled with nods and murmurs, felt full, like we were all tethered together by something greater than ourselves. I live now with both sorrow and joy. They sit side by side, a complex tapestry woven in two voices, loss and love. And that's okay. My mother's memory lives in tenderness, in a worn floral notebook, in that scattered collection of sticky notes tucked into library books. But more than that, her love lives in me, embodied in the kindness I pass forward, in the silent connections I cultivate, in the belief that even when someone is gone, words, and hearts, can still reach each other. Sometimes, when I stand under a street lamp and the wind tosses fallen leaves at my feet, I know I carry her still. Then, softly, I whisper to the dark, "Thank you, Mom. We're still writing this story together."